the house across the street. I moved in on a Wednesday with a sky the color of dishwater and a wind that kept changing its mind. The moving truck had no ramp, so I hauled boxes up a narrow stairwell that turned at the worst angles and made the walls feel too close. The hallway smelled like dust and lemon cleaner, the kind of clean that tries a little too hard. I kept my front door propped with a shoe and set boxes in the living room where the floorboards sighed like they were remembering old weight. The window was the first thing I checked. It took up most of the wall and faced the street like a single pulsing eye. I angled my body to it before I knew I was doing it. Across from me, the house sat with the kind of heaviness that drags a whole block down. 3 stories of gray wood and stubborn angles. A porch running the length of the front with railings flaked to the bone, columns scrubbed pale, every curtain drawn, not fully, just enough to see the suggestion of space behind them. A slit here, a thin triangle there, little bites taken out of privacy. Everything else on the street tried to look friendly. Brick buildings with window boxes. A cafe on the corner with an A-frame chalkboard promising soup of the day. A bike locked to a pole, the handlebar tape peeling in corkscrews. Then that house. It looked like someone had pressed pause on it years ago. You could imagine the dust inside never settling. I leaned on the sill and eased the window an inch. The paint had been layered and layered again, and when it gave, the tiny pop sounded too loud. Air slid in, cool and damp. The smell came with it, not fresh rain or earth, not city exhaust, something soft at the edges and sour in the middle, like a bowl of fruit left in a dark room. It curled into my nose and set up camp. A car door slammed and a dog barked twice. A delivery bike skimmed the curb and rattled over a loose manhole cover. The house didn't react to any of it. No porch light, no flicker of movement. But the curtains felt like they were paying attention. It was a stupid thought, and I told myself that out loud. Stop. The landlord's footsteps creaked in the hall, and a ring of keys clattered. A soft knock. I wiped my hands on my jeans and opened the door. Everything okay? Yeah. Heat's been temperamental this week. If it bangs, don't worry. It does that when it's feeling dramatic. Got it. That window sticks sometimes, lift from the bottom corners, and the trash goes out on Tuesdays. What's that place across the street? The boarding house. For who? For women. That's what the owner says. Been there longer than I have. People actually live there. Nobody really goes in or out. She shrugged, like that was all anyone could expect to know. She handed me the last set of keys. The brass was warm from her palm. She looked past me toward the window, then away. Quick. If you need anything, text. Welcome, Claire. Thanks. When the door clicked shut, the apartment filled with the hum of the refrigerator and my own breathing. I went back to the window because I couldn't help it. A white hand slid the curtain on the second floor a fraction. Not even a hand. The suggestion of knuckles pressing fabric. Then gone. I held my breath as if that would make me quieter, to watch. When nothing else moved, I exhaled and got to work. Unpacking is supposed to make a place yours. I set plates in a cabinet, slid 2 mugs beside them, and lined up spoons as if order could hold the room together. I found my kettle and set it on the stove, like that was a promise. I put my toothbrush in a glass near the sink and propped my mattress against the wall to wrestle with the frame. The floor was new, but when I walked, the boards made small noises anyway, like a complaint under the surface. Every time I crossed the room, I glanced back to the window. It kept pulling at me, the way a sore tooth does. On the porch rail of the house, a small metal mailbox hung by 2 rusted screws. Someone had slid a plastic name label into the slot. The letters were perfect and black against white. Harrow. The word hit my tongue even with my mouth closed. It made me think of a blade dragged through dirt, the feeling of turned earth. I rubbed my thumb over a cardboard edge and didn't realize I'd cut myself until a bright sting arrived, a beat late. I ran water over the cut and watched the clean line fill, then fade to a pink gloss beneath the skin. The faucet stuttered twice, like it had a stammer. When I looked up, my reflection floated in the window for a second, ghosting the view. I stepped closer until the room behind me disappeared in the glass, and the street took over again. A pale oval hovered at the edge of the second-floor curtain gap. It was there just long enough for my mind to register cheekbone and dark hair before it snapped out of sight. My scalp prickled in a way that made me press my palm to it. I told myself to put on music, something normal, simple, with no words. Piano found its way into the corners. It helped until it didn't. The melody collected the quiet and made me more aware of it. A fly buzzed between the screen and the glass, tapping like it wanted to be anywhere else. I went to the window anyway and looked over the frame at the street. A woman in a red scarf walked fast with her head down. A kid in a hoodie rode a scooter, one foot pushing hard to keep speed, the other welded to the deck, the metal clacking over cracks. The house across from me soaked it all in, without changing shape. There are some silences that feel chosen. Theirs didn't feel like it belonged outside. It felt imported. It carried with it an absolute refusal to explain itself. I took a breath and held it and let it go. When I turned away, a knock came at my door. It made me jump so sharply that my shoulder twinged. "Hey!" A woman stood there with paint on her fingers, hair twisted up with a pencil, a t-shirt with a print so washed it was just color now. She smiled in that automatic neighborly way. "I'm Kara, third door down. If you hear a chirp every 10 minutes, it's my smoke alarm. I'm changing the battery when I remember to buy one. Claire, you good in there?" "I think so." She glanced over my shoulder toward the window, toward the house. Her smile tilted. "That place messes with your head if you let it." "What is it, really?" "People say it's a shelter. I've never seen a woman go in through the front. So I stopped wondering. Easier that way." "Is the owner around?" "Sometimes I catch a shadow, like early mornings. He keeps to himself." "Mr. Harrow, right. That's the name on the mailbox. Gives me the creeps." "Same." "Pizza on the corner is decent if you don't want to cook. I'm around if you need a screwdriver or a person to complain to about the pipes." "Thanks." She lifted 2 fingers in a quick little wave and disappeared down the hall. The sound of her door shutting was somehow softer than my own heartbeat. For a few minutes, the apartment seemed occupied by the echo of her voice. It drained away and left the old quiet in its place, a quiet that knew it was winning. Dusk pulled itself over the block like a thin blanket. Streetlights flickered to life with a sleepy buzz one by one. The cafe's sign glowed warm. The house across the street grew darker yet, a shape against the new darkness. The gaps in the curtains like blinks. I turned my lamp on low and made tea. The kettle's scream sliced the room, and I grabbed it fast, embarrassed by the noise even though there was no one here to be bothered. I stood with the mug in both hands until my fingers burned. The steam smelled like faint lemon and metal. I tried to plan practical next steps. A rug tomorrow, groceries, a shower curtain because the rod was bare. The list calmed me for a minute. I put it on the counter and went to the window again, because all the calm did was buy me the space to go back. A light licked under a first-floor curtain in the house across from me. It wasn't the airy kind of light that spills. It pushed weakly, as if the bulb itself was tired. The curtain darkened from gold to a deeper color, then stilled. No silhouette crossed it. The upper floors remained black. The porch's boards reflected a strip of that low light like a tongue. I watched for footsteps. None. I tried calling my mom and let her voice make everything sound less sharp. "You're there." "Yeah." "Place okay." "Small. Clean. I can see the whole street from the window." "You always love to people watch. Just don't spook yourself." "I'll try." "What's in the neighborhood?" "Cafe on the corner. A bakery 3 blocks down. A house across the street that looks like it won't blink." "That's dramatic." "It just feels weird." "You're tired. Unpack a little. Eat something. Sleep. Tomorrow it'll feel different." "Maybe." "If you need anything, you call. Don't be stubborn." "Okay. Love you. Love you." I set the phone down and realized I hadn't taken a single bite all day that I wasn't forcing down. I scrambled eggs, overcooked them, and ate them standing up while staring at nothing. The fork scraped the plate and sounded like chalk. I washed it and put it away, because habits are the only anchor when everything else slides. Outside, the street thinned. Cars passed less often, the noise softer each time. A bus hissed, turning a corner 2 blocks away. The light under the house's curtain didn't change. I kept waiting for it to go out, because that would signal a person inside going to bed. People make patterns. Patterns make sense. The house didn't move toward sense. It held and held until my muscles forgot what rest felt like. On the 3rd floor, far left, a narrow line of something bright traced across the top of a curtain. Not a lamp, not a streetlight reflection. A door inside the room, cracked open. It made a seam you could almost slip a fingernail into. A shape cut through it. Thin shoulders. A head turning as if listening. Then the shape slid away. Another shape replaced it. This one stood straighter, chin up. It stayed longer, blocking the seam like a finger pressed over a mouth. I didn't know why that second shape scared me more, but it did. I pulled the lamp lower and let the room sink into dim. My reflection in the window vanished. Outside, a patrol car idled at the far end of the block, blue lights pulsing softly against the curb. It stayed there a minute, then rolled on without stopping. I watched it go, like it might take the feeling in my stomach with it. It didn't. A crack of laughter from the cafe floated up and cut off quickly, as if someone remembered the late hour mid-sound. I rubbed my arms and told myself to shower and get into bed and stop feeding the thing in me that asked for more. I went to the bathroom and turned the water until steam ghosted the mirror. New tile, new grout. The clean smell of it made me feel like a person with plans. I got in and let the heat hammer my shoulders. For a few minutes, the rest of the world lost its edge. When I stepped out, the apartment air felt cooler and thinner. I toweled off and dressed and walked barefoot to the window. The 2nd floor curtain that had shown me that first pale oval earlier had opened wider. Not fully. A gap the width of 2 fingers. I froze like a deer would. The gap didn't move for a long 10 seconds. Then a face leaned into it. Pale, hair falling limp on either side, eyes set wide. There was no way I could see color at that distance, but I thought of brown. Young. No older than me. The mouth formed an O for breath against the glass and fogged it. Then the face disappeared with a jerk. I didn't realize my hand had reached for the glass until my palm flattened on the window. I could feel the vibration of the street in it. A truck somewhere. A motorcycle 2 blocks over. My handprint stayed and then faded. My breath made a smaller fog on my side. I wiped it with the heel of my hand like a child and hated that I did it, that I made a gesture that could be seen from across the street if anyone was looking. The mailbox rattled on the house's porch, a small metallic tremor, like someone touched it from inside. I couldn't have heard that from this far. I told myself I heard it anyway. I tried to conjure up the owner's face and couldn't settle on an image. Mr. Harrow. The name sat in my brain, heavy without a picture to wear. The figures behind the curtains, though, already had faces. One young and timid, one older, shoulders tense with a different kind of endurance. A third somewhere between, restless. I folded my arms and forced myself to step back. I turned the lamp off. I pulled my own curtain halfway across the window and left a small slice open because I couldn't make myself leave it closed. The room settled into shadow. With the light behind me gone, the house looked closer. The gaps looked darker. The porch boards gleamed faintly with the residue of that weak, trapped light below. The doorknob reflected a pinprick of street lamp. I whispered even though no one could hear. "Can you see me?" My words felt like a pebble, dropped down a deep shaft. They went and never hit bottom. In the second floor gap, movement flickered. A hand, the hint of a cheek, the mouth again. It opened and closed like a fish at the edge of water. No sound. My heart thumped in steady, heavy beats that made the edges of my vision feel fuzzy. I wanted to pull the curtain shut. I wanted to keep watching. Both wants pinned me in place. A car crept down the street and slowed near the house. It paused like someone inside was deciding whether to stop. The engine muttered. The car crept on. The decision not to stop felt like a story I would never get to hear the ending of. When the taillights turned the corner, the house seemed to absorb the space they left. I turned away because I had to. When I climbed into bed, the new mattress groaned, a long, uncertain sentence. I stared at the ceiling until the veins in my eyes pulsed and the darkness pressed back. I rolled to face the window. Through the slice of view I'd left, the second floor gap remained, thinner now. The pale oval did not return. My mind replayed it anyway. It layered another face over it, older, hollow-eyed, a flash of stubborn jaw. Names tried themselves on the images without my permission. Anna for the youngest, Marisol for the woman with the set shoulders, Talia for the one who stood straighter at the seam and didn't move. I pushed the names away. They stuck. The radiator ticked and hummed and sighed like an animal, working itself into a comfortable shape. The building shifted and settled. I lay very still and listened to the sound of my own breath. At some point I drifted in that shallow way you do when your brain refuses to let go. A click pricked me awake. Small, metal. From across the street or from inside my head, I couldn't tell. I stared at the slice of window until the shapes of the porch railing and the trees and the mailbox sharpened back into being. Something about the stillness changed. Not big. The negative space receded a fraction, as if someone leaned, just out of sight, on the other side of the second floor curtain. I felt it without seeing it, the way you feel a person come up behind you in a line. My skin tightened over my arms. I lifted the edge of the sheet and tucked it under my chin like I had when I was a child, and believed the right arrangement of fabric could stop anything from getting to me. I told myself 3 lies. Tomorrow I would not look. Tomorrow I would buy a rug and a plant and talk to the barista about the weather. Tomorrow the house would be a shape in my periphery that I could choose to ignore. I repeated them until the words lost content and became soft sounds. My heart slowed. My jaw unclenched. The last thing I registered before sleep pulled me under was the ghost smell of damp fruit and the knowledge that even with my eyes closed, I could feel the weight of the house's windows on my skin, like a gaze you can step away from, but not rinse off. Morning pushes through in a thin gray wash, the kind that makes everything look smudged. The radiator coughs once and finds its rhythm. I pull the curtain and stare at the house like it might blink if I catch it fast enough. It doesn't. It sits in that flat daylight and lets the street move around it. Paint curls off in strips. One porch board bows in the middle, like a back held too long in the same position. The curtains are still drawn, but not perfectly. A fray at one edge, a crease like a pressed seam. Coffee doesn't change much. It warms my hands and makes my stomach tight. I drink it at the window and watch small things. A bike chain rubs. A bus sighs at the far corner. A man in a blue jacket walks a dog that refuses to hurry. Then something subtle. Not one window, but 3. First floor left curtain lifts 2 inches and holds. Second floor right shifts the width of a finger. Third floor center twitches like a breath. It happens within minutes, like a quiet choreography. I glance at the stove clock without meaning to. 10 past 7 for the first move, 12 past, 14 past. A pattern. I don't want to be the person who keeps a notebook. I start one anyway. Date, time, which window. A quick block drawing of the facade with small squares for glass. I shade the ones that move. I mean for the act to steady me. It does and it doesn't. The numbers look like a comfort until they start to repeat. The repeats feel like a finger tapping in the same place on my skull. I take the trash down just to stand in air that hasn't been through my walls. The sidewalk smells clean, like wet stone and soap from somebody's morning mopping. When I reach the curb, another scent slides in underneath. Sweet at first, then soft rot. The back of the tongue flavor of fruit left out too long. It hangs low, as if it's heavier than air, and hugs the ground. It clings near the fence of the house's side yard. The slats there are newer than the rest of the structure. Tight together, no gaps, even light struggles to slide through. I walk to the cafe at the corner and order without tasting my own words. Large drip. Sure. Know anything about the gray house with the curtains? The boarding house. For real. That's what folks say. I don't mess with it. Right. The cup is hot in my palm on the walk back. I sip and it goes lukewarm while I stare. The house is the same in noon light as dusk. It feels like it carries its own weather with it. Inside my stomach, something mirrors that. Still. Dense. Unmoving. By Wednesday, the notebook has a skeleton. Morning sequences, evening sequences. Some days the order shifts, but the rhythm remains. Always that slow, neat cascade. I angle a small pocket mirror on my sill to pick up a slice of the porch I can't see straight on. The reflection gives me the doorknob and an inch of the mat. The knob barely moves when the door opens. The hinges are too well oiled. The only sign is that the hairline strip of daylight around the frame vanishes and returns in the length of a held breath. I watch that happen twice in 4 days. Both times, no person is visible before or after. A van idles at the curb on Friday. The driver sets 2 boxes on the porch and leaves without knocking. 10 minutes later, the boxes are gone. I didn't see a hand, a sleeve, a wrist, nothing. The mirror shows only the door's empty wedge. It feels like a party trick for an audience of 1. The names sneak in while I stare. The young face becomes Anna before I agree to it. The older silhouette with the set shoulders that sometimes hold still near the edge of a curtain becomes Marisol without asking me. The posture that always makes my back straighten is Talia, a name that tastes like fight. I hate that I do this. It doesn't matter. The name's root anyway. The storm arrives on a Saturday the forecast promised would be mild. The air tightens in the afternoon, like someone pulled a belt around the block. The trees go quiet. The first thunder doesn't crack. It rolls and gets under everything. I turn the lamp off and press my forehead near the window until the glass cools my skin. The house looks darker under a dark sky, like it has more of it to pull into itself. When lightning comes, it's a clean slice. For a full white second, the second floor right window holds a face, a pale oval, the shine of eyes. It's gone before I finish pulling in a breath. The next flash lights 2 rooms on different floors, 2 figures, one each. Both turned to the glass as if the glass might answer them. Thunder drops a beat later and rattles the silverware in my drawer. Lightning again. 3 windows, 3 figures. One hand pressed flat in the 3rd floor center. The skin brightens so fast it looks like paper on fire. Then dark. My own hand presses to my glass, without permission from me. The rain is sudden and heavy and clatters like 1,000 beads hitting the street at once. It blurs edges. It turns the porch into a slick rectangle that reflects nothing back. Between flashes, I fill the space with guesses. Rooms with beds or cots, a low table, a chair, a metal bucket under a sink, a bulb with a pull chain. The images slot themselves into place behind the curtains, because I have to put something there, and my mind would rather fill a blank with fear than leave it open. The storm leans in. The gaps glow. The thunder stacks on itself so closely, it sounds like someone shoving furniture around in the sky. I don't move from the window. My shoulders start to ache. Every time the light pops the street into hard focus, a different window owns a body. A different shape holds the frame, with a face or a hand, like each person has a schedule for when they are allowed to be seen. When the lightning thins and the rain evens out, I step back to the counter and open my laptop because the compulsion to look for the name in pixels is the one I can control. I type Harrow Home for Women and hit return. The results aren't many. A scan of a local paper from years ago, a ribbon-cutting photo with a younger, slick-haired man shaking a councilwoman's hand. Words stacked next to it, promise safe haven, structure transition. There is a grant announcement the following year, then a fundraiser photo without names. After that, the trail phrase, a broken link to a volunteer sign-up, a dead social page, a short crime blotter note about a missing person last seen in the area, with no street listed, just the neighborhood. Names and dates blur. I scroll until I feel sick. The cursor pulses like a small heartbeat on a blank search bar when I stop. I call my mother to let her voice recalibrate me. Storm loud. Yeah. You staying in? Yeah. You unpacked the last box yet? Almost. Do me a favor and stop staring at that place. Walk the other way. Meet your neighbor. Watch something silly before bed. I will. Promise me. Promise. We hang up. The promise sits in my mouth like a coin. I don't spit it out. I don't swallow it either. Thunder wanders off to bother another block. Rain scales down to a steady patter. When the next flash comes, it is thin and far, but it's enough. The house stutters into view with 2 figures in 2 windows at once, 2nd floor left and right, both angled toward me with the same tilt I can't name. The dark returns and presses up against the glass. The notebook takes the numbers because I need to put them somewhere outside my head. 8:17, flash, face in 2R. 8:18, flash, hand in 3C. 8 hours, 18 minutes, and 30 seconds, flash, 2 figures, 2L and 2R. My handwriting goes small and cramped, as if I can hide what I'm writing from myself. The pen stutters where the page is rough. The act doesn't help. It helps. Both are true. The neighborhood settles after 10. The cafe's sign clicks off. A car door closes with the soft thump of someone trying not to wake a child. My screen shows the reflection of my own shoulders as dark shapes until I slide the laptop shut. I sit with my back against the wall because I want something solid behind me. The mirror on the sill holds a thin wedge of the porch and the doorknob waiting in a little pool of street lamp. The doorknob gleams, then darkens for the length of a blink. It could be a cloud. It could be a hand passing. Either way, my skin knows it before my mind agrees. The rain softens to a wet whisper. The smell lifts again through the crack in my window frame. That sweet rot note. Not strong, but steady. It makes the room feel like it shares a throat with the house. I rub the heel of my hand over the glass and find a dull line that wasn't there earlier. A streak of dirt carried by water, not mine. It doesn't want to come off. I stop trying. Kara's text arrives at 10:12. You okay? Yeah. Need anything? I'm good. If the house does something weird, ignore it. I'm trying. Good night. Night. I put the phone face down. The apartment breathes with me. Pipes knock far away and then forget what they were trying to say. I count between drips on the window frame until the numbers go fuzzy. I stand without deciding to and drift back to the glass. It happens quietly. No thunder now. No flash. Just a dim glow, the color of old milk rising behind the second-floor right curtain, as if someone turned a phone screen outward or held a small light too close to fabric. The glow moves toward the edge and holds, a soft rectangle, pulsing faintly as a hand adjusts behind it. The light bleeds into the weave. My mouth goes dry. I lift a hand and stop. I don't want to put my palm on the glass and feel the cold. I don't want to stand back and pretend this isn't for me. I hover in the middle and count 4 breaths. The glow dips. It climbs. It dies. I open the laptop again, then close it halfway, then open it all the way. The motion feels like I'm pulling a lever I shouldn't. The map app turns the house into a gray polygon with a pin that doesn't mean anything. Satellite view shows a clean roof with nothing obvious. Street view freezes the porch in a sunny frame from 2 summers ago, when the railings were just as flaked, but the flowers on the neighboring stoop were brighter. The still frame makes it worse. A perfect picture of nothing happening is its own kind of threat. I spin the view away and close the lid. On a neighborhood forum, I find a thread about streetlights that stutter, another about a cat that went missing and came back 3 days later covered in dust, a fundraiser flyer for Harrow Home for Women, with cheerful blue letters and paper stars taped around the edges of the banner. The date is a decade old. The faces are too blurry to recognize. One woman at the end of the table has a streak of gray in her hair that makes my mind pull up the silhouette that sometimes leans in the far window and listens for something I can't hear. The rain drops to a mist. The street floats. The house sits inside an island of its own air. The second-floor right curtain opens by a fraction. A hand presses flat to the glass from inside. I can see the darker pads of the fingers and the pale webbing between them. The sight knocks something out of my chest. The hand stays. It doesn't tap. It doesn't slide. It simply stays. I don't know if I speak to the woman or to myself. Are you okay? The palm lifts and presses again, higher by an inch. The curtain shivers like someone just out of view has noticed. The gap widens a finger's width. A cheek leans into the sliver. Hair hangs limp in strands. The mouth comes last. It shapes something without sound. Breath fogs the glass in a small circle, blooms and fades. I read the shape whether or not it is there. Help. Heat and cold roll through me at the same time. My hand goes to my phone and hovers over numbers. If I call and I'm wrong, I invite attention I don't want. If I don't and I'm right, I'm another person who watched and did nothing. The distance across the street turns into a field I can't cross. The mirror on the sill shows the doorknob again. A small change. The glint lessens and returns, as if a hand grazed it. I think of the name on the mailbox in black, on white. Harrow. The word scrapes through my head, like metal in dirt. The mouth at the window shapes the plea again. The breath fogs a second small circle that melts fast. The curtain jumps. The gap snaps shut. The room behind it drops into thick dark. I stand breathing like I've run. The screen hums softly with the damp. The scent of sweet rot hangs just inside my room now. I push my own curtain half closed and step back. The slice I leave open frames the place where the hand was. It shows me only my reflection and the wet street. In that reflection, my eyes look a little too wide. I try to look away. I can't. The image of the palm and the mouth won't dissolve. It sits in the air in front of me like the after-image of a light switched off too fast. I don't move until my legs complain. I don't speak. The word keeps forming in my head anyway. Help. I don't sleep. I get horizontal, stare into the dark, get up again. The clock crawls. I drink water and watch the stream turn thin and metallic. The street thins until it feels like I'm the only person awake on the block. The slice of view I left open keeps tugging at me, like a hook under the ribs. I pull the curtain wide and kill the lamp. The room goes aquarium clear, streetlight shallow across the walls. The glass cools my forehead when I lean close. Across the street, the second floor right window holds steady. No glow, no shift. The porch boards shine with the last of the rain. The mailbox sits square on the rail. The neat black letters of Harrow catch and lose a faint sheen. The doorknob waits in its little beam of light. I still my breathing so I don't fog my side of the glass. Nothing happens. My pulse doesn't care. It climbs anyway. I try movement, small at first. I slide my curtain halfway closed and hold it there. 5 heartbeats. I open it again. Across the street, a whisper of motion. The second floor right curtain opens by the width of 2 fingers, then stops. The gap is dark and deep, like a narrow throat. No face, no hand. Just the sense of someone bracing an elbow on a sill, just out of sight. I keep my hands off the glass and feel the pain sweat into the room. I try again. I draw my curtain a quarter closed. I pause. I open it smooth and slow. The gap across widens to match. The timing is close enough to make me think of mirrors that don't quite line up. I hold my breath like air itself might give me away. The gap stays. The curtain trembles once, as if a small muscle is failing. I want proof that's more than coincidence. I open my phone's stopwatch and set it on the sill. I lift my curtain 2 inches. I count aloud under my breath. 1, 2, 3. On 4, the second floor curtain moves the same amount. I lower mine. Theirs falls. I raise. It rises. The simple echo is worse than any trick. It isn't a pattern. It's obedience. It is someone telling me they can see me and they are doing what I do. The sour, sweet scent lifts through the frame again. Faint, but steady, like a room breathing through the crack in its teeth. The part of me that loves puzzles pushes up from under my ribs. I open my curtain all the way and step back until my calves touch the bed. I sit. My eyes burn. Nothing moves. Then the gap across widens just enough for a face. The cheek arrives first, pale, then an eye. Even at this distance, the focus of it hits. It lands on my skin like a touch. I kneel on the mattress to level my gaze and rest my forearms on the sill. The wood is cool and ridged under nested coats of paint. My breath fogs and clears on my side. The eye across doesn't blink. The stillness of the face reads as effort, like a pose held past comfort. The mouth is a line. Hair hangs in limp strands. The eye is the whole world. We look at each other a long time. My room shrinks to my rectangle and hers. My knees go numb. My shoulders ache. The stare builds weight until I feel clumsy under it, too big for my bones. My mind gives her a name I can't stop now that it's there. Anna fits the line of the cheek and the softness of the jaw. The desperation in the eye makes her look older, but the bones are not. A second shadow stands deeper in the room behind her. Taller, shoulders squared like a warning. I imagine a hand on her shoulder just outside the frame, fighting the same pull I am. The silence in the room is a pressure change. Pipes click somewhere below. A car glides past and washes my walls with light. I swallow and find my throat dry. I open my mouth. Do you want me to call someone? No change, not for a breath. Then the mouth moves the smallest amount. Breath fogs her glass. A bloom and a fade. Not a nod, not a shake. The hint of a shape. My fingers twitch toward my phone and stop. The distance between thought and act stretches long. Fear nests inside reason and calls itself careful. The truth sits across the street with a face to glass and asks without sound. I need simple. I press my palm flat to the window. I lift it and close my fist. Open, close, twice. I feel foolish and brave at the same time. Her hand appears beside the face, thin, pale. The fingers lift and lower. They flatten to the pain. They lift again. My chest tightens so hard I touch my sternum, like I can keep things from spilling. I nod. I don't know if she can see. I do it again. Bigger. I force myself to break contact with the frame and walk to the counter because if I don't move my body, I will never move again. Pins and needles bite up my legs. I tear a corner off an envelope and use a fat marker so the letters won't blur. Are you safe? I hold the paper against the glass, angling it to catch street light. My arms shake. Anna's face turns a fraction, not toward me but toward the room behind her, like she's listening for something. The shadow deeper in the room leans. The curtain jumps with a movement that isn't hers. A jerk, a silent warning. She goes still, statue still. The paper in my hand looks loud and wrong. I lower it slowly and slide it under a book with a motion that feels criminal inside my own apartment. The smell from the window grows a shade stronger. The street looks like a painted backdrop taped to brick. I put both hands back on the sill. The eye has a shine to it now. Tears or light, I can't tell. The mouth shapes something again, small, breath fogging at the corners instead of the center. The word forms in my head. Whether or not, it sits on her lips, and it clicks into a place that has been empty for months. It starts the smallest gear turning. Clink, clink, clink. Another movement pulls my gaze. Third floor left. A narrow slice of curtain opens, and a different face peers out. Older. The streak of gray at the hairline catches what little light there is. The eyes go to the street, then down to the second floor, then back. Check the ground. Check the others. Habit. She withdraws. The name Marisol lands in my head and sits heavy. A shift near the seam at the top of the third floor center draws me again. Shoulders set. Chin tilted a fraction high. A listening posture. She doesn't look out right away. She listens to a sound I can't hear. When she does glance toward me, it is quick, hot, and gone. Talia. And I don't know why I'm sure, and am sure anyway. Time slides sideways. The neighborhood soundscape thins, stretches. A bus groans 2 blocks away, then sinks. A far siren climbs and recedes. The house's breathing presses through absence. I feel it more than hear it. In the way a seam of light climbs and falls inside a top curtain. In the small tremor along the fabric near Anna's cheek, as if fingers squeeze and release. Then everything changes a fraction. The hairs at my wrists lift. The building's low hum flattens. The second-floor curtain moves fast, clipped. Not a human hand, a tug, a rule enforced. The gap narrows. Anna's eye doesn't look at me. It looks higher, towards someone in the room with her. I think about the neat plastic nameplate on the porch rail. Harrow. I think about a polite shadow at odd hours. A door that opens without a sound and leaves nothing behind when it closes. The idea that there are rules in there chills me worse than the rain. The third floor shows a sickly puddle of glow, not lamplight, something weaker, shielded. It brightens a foot of air and nothing else. Camera. The puzzle-thinking part of me supplies. My skin crawls because the thought fits. I test the idea because not testing it feels like surrender. I step left along my glass. I step right. The glow doesn't track me. Good. I hold up the blank side of the envelope. The glow dims, then lifts, not because of me, but because a hand inside cupped something and moved it away. In the second floor gap, Anna's mouth shapes the same soft shape. Help. The word presses into me without sound, a thumbprint on wet clay. A door slams somewhere in my building and my heart bucks. Voices in the hall, a quick laugh that stops mid-breath as if someone remembered the hour. When I look back, the second floor gap is wider and her face is closer, skin pressed to pain. She doesn't blink. She doesn't dare. It feels like the room on her side has been emptied of air. I do the only thing I can make my body do without falling. I open my curtain flat and leave it there. It is ridiculous that the gesture feels like a vow. It is a vow anyway. I see you. I won't turn away. Across the street, 2 more windows give a fraction at once. Second floor right and third floor center. Not grace. Flinch. The house tries to swallow the motion and fails. For 8 seconds there is nothing but breath. Hers and mine and the bare suggestion of it in a third space I can't reach. Then the face changes. The stare that has been a pin pressed through felt sharpens into plea. The mouth shapes 3 forms. The third doubles over on itself with force. The plea is clear, even without sound. Help me. Something in me that has been nailed shut since I last watched something die, without knowing how to keep it, holds cracks open. Heat and nausea roll. The room sways. I put my forehead to the glass for the cold. It steadies me enough to watch. What moves next happens in a sliver. A third shape crowds the gap. Not face, not hand. A shoulder, a stripe of shirt. It fills the space like a wall being shoved into a doorway. The curtain jerks hard. The gap thins to thread. Anna is dragged back into the room's negative, and I see the motion only in the way the fabric moves when a body near it moves fast. Once, twice, gone. I wait for a light to flare. None does. I wait for footsteps on the porch. I imagine them and hate that I'm doing it. The porch stays a slick plank, empty. The only sound in my apartment is my own breath when I force it through my teeth. My body comes back in patches, fingers unclench, joints crack. I stand, and the pins and needles bite from knees to calves. Streetlight finds the porch label again. Harrow. The neatness of it, the politeness of it, is a threat. I need to know if the house is still watching. I click my lamp on. Warm light cups the room. I click it off. I count to 3 and click it on again. On the third click, a thin glow appears behind the third-floor edge across the street and snuffs itself. I don't breathe. I let the dark lay back down and listen to my own pulse. Then the night changes in a single, deliberate act. Every hint of light inside the house vanishes at once. Not a gradual dim. A cut. The sense of a switchboard thrown row by row. No glow behind any curtain, no seam at a top panel, no weak leak under a first-floor edge. The house becomes a blind block, denser than the dark around it. It is like watching eyes close. I step back so fast my heel hits the bed, and I sit. My throat makes a sound and aborts the rest. My hand yanks my own curtain halfway shut, like I've touched a hot stove. It doesn't help. The echo of that black shift hangs in the air like a smell. I stand, close the curtain all the way, open it again, end with it in the middle, palm on the fabric, pulse tapping under the cloth. I listen hard. Building hum. Radiator hiss. An elevator's faint throat clearing in another structure down the block. Nothing from the house. Chosen quiet. My thumb hovers over numbers on my phone. I picture explaining a face with no sound, a mirrored curtain, a house that cut itself to black. I picture a cruiser idling and then moving on. The calculation shames me even as I make it. I lower the phone. I turn on the lamp and walk to the sink and drink water until my jaw stops shaking. I set the glass down carefully because noise feels like a thing that could shatter me. I go back to the window because not looking is worse. The house is a stone in a stream. The street moves around it. My reflection is faint in the glass, paler than usual, eyes too bright. I focus on it for a breath because it is less than the other thing. I slide the curtain a finger's width and let the same solid dark stare back. I think of Kara sleeping 3 doors down. My mother, who would say to close the window and lock it twice. Alex, who would say, I'm making a story because I need to fix something. The envelope under the book with its black block letters. The small gear that woke up and started to turn. The sky lightens at the seam of the buildings, the faintest straw at the edge of night. The house stays dark. Maybe when daylight fully arrives, the third floor will show a seam. The second will breathe. Patterns love to return. But the face looked at me, and the mouth formed a shape I can't call mistaken, and the house closed like a fist. I press my fingers against the sill and feel the paint ridges under my skin. I breathe slow and even until my heart stops trying to climb into my throat. The city brightens by degrees. Somewhere a baker flips a sign. The sour sweet smell drifts, faint and sure, through the frame like proof. I can't ignore this. Not after tonight. Something is wrong in that house across the street, and the knowledge has settled in me like a blade, laid flat. Every breath taps against it. I know I'm going to find out what it is. Morning finds me raw at the edges. Sleep came in short slips that didn't hold, and every sound in the apartment lands bright and wrong. The radiator coughs. Pipes count something in the walls. The fridge hums in a pitch that makes my jaw ache. I pull the curtain, and the light is a flat, reluctant gray. The house across the street sits exactly where it did last night, only it feels closer, like the whole block shifted an inch toward my window while I was trying not to stare. Coffee is all bitterness and heat. I drink it anyway, hip against the sill, mug cupped in both hands. The glass cools my forehead when I lean in. The house offers me the same face it always does, Curtains pulled into careful lines, porch boards scrubbed pale, paint lifting at the edges like scabs. The mailbox on the rail carries that neat white label, Harrow. The word doesn't change in daylight. It just looks more sure of itself. I open my notebook because turning dread into numbers tricked me once. Dates down the left, little boxes for each window, times in thin columns. Yesterday's line is clean enough to be a lie. 10 past 7, first floor left. 12 past, second floor right. 14 past, third floor center. A rhythm you could tap with 2 fingers. Then there's the line from last night. Lightning carving faces into the dark, and that mouth forming a word I don't want to own. I add a note I can't make small enough to hide from myself. Weekend patterns break. The curtains moved more on Saturday than any day before. That should mean nothing. It doesn't. If the house has rules, last night broke them. My pen scratches too loud. I set it down and realize my fingers are shaking. I leave the mug on the sill and breathe in through my nose, out through my mouth. The air tastes damp and metallic. A sweetness sits under it like something soft going bad. It doesn't belong to the street. It belongs to the house. My phone buzzes with a text from Kara. You alive? Barely. House still weird. Yeah. Sugar, drill, distraction. Pick 2. Later. Promise. Promise. I set the phone face down. I let the room settle back into its noises. Somewhere downstairs, a radio tries to sell dish soap in a cheerful voice. A door thumps, the careful kind of close people use when they're trying not to wake a child. I pull on a sweatshirt and gather the trash because doing anything at all makes me feel less like I'm only eyes. The hallway is thin with morning. Dust floats and doesn't know where to land. The stair rail is cold under my palm. My bag rustles on each step, loud and papery, a small animal trying to hide. The lobby smells like lemon cleaner and old water. Outside, the sidewalk wears a pale sheen. Wet stone cools my tongue when I breathe through my mouth. A bus sighs at the corner and glides on. Someone's dog refuses to hurry. I lift a bin lid. The hinge squeals. When the bag drops, the slap echoes off the porch rail like a hand on a drum. That's when I see it. A brown paper package half tucked under the bin, as if someone tried to feed it through the slot and thought better of it. The label is a little damp, but the letters are sharp. Harrow Home for Women. The address matches the number nailed to the house. 324 Ashbourne Street. The corner of the package is crushed just enough to show white cardboard under the paper. It's lighter than it looks when I pick it up. Something soft slides to the low end. The street is that thick kind of empty, where you can hear the lack. Cars parked nose to tail. A woman with a tote vanishes around the far corner. Leaves cling to wet concrete in dark hands. My back prickles between my shoulder blades like a draft touched me under my shirt. It's not wind. The air is still enough to hear a bird change its mind. A breath warms the back of my neck. I turn fast. The sidewalk is bare. My skin stays tight anyway. The feeling lingers, a weight the size of a hand held an inch above my spine. I stand very still until stillness feels like surrender. Then I hold the package tighter, because that is the only thing that doesn't feel like giving in. I look at the house and pretend to weigh my options. The porch boards shine with a clean that has been earned with effort. The curtains are as blank as ever, but the second floor right panel lifts a fraction, like someone brushed it with the back of a fingernail. The mailbox nudges the rail, as if the porch itself has a breath. The black letters on the label are patient. I try the word out loud. Harrow. It sits on my tongue like coin and blood. The argument runs quick and quiet in my head. I can leave the thing where I found it and walk away. I can carry it to the cafe and hide in noise and milk foam and hope the feeling in my stomach shrinks enough to let me make small talk. I can take it upstairs and set it on my counter and pretend I'm not the kind of person who keeps looking when she shouldn't. Or I can be a normal human being returning a misdelivered package to a neighbor and hate myself for calling any part of this normal. All four choices feel bad in different ways. The one that makes my chest feel least tight is the one that puts me on the porch. I cross the street. Every step adds details I didn't want. The doormat is new enough to scratch. The edges of the boards collect grit that no broom seems to miss. The house gives off a little heat, not enough to call warmth, just a sense that the air near it is thicker. The sour-sweet smell is stronger here, a low, wrong note under what might once have been leaf rot and rain. It feels like a hallway that hasn't been aired out. I stop at the bottom step and listen. The street murmurs. A bike chain rubs somewhere I can't see. In the house, nothing moves, and the nothing has its own texture. The mailbox clicks softly without wind. My mind supplies an explanation I don't believe. Settling wood, a loose screw, my nerves making sound. I hold the package so the label faces the door. I don't want to touch the knob. I don't want to leave my print on the bell. I don't want to stand here and make myself the static piece in a picture I can't step out of. I make a small deal with myself. I will lift a finger toward the bell. If the choice feels wrong under my skin, I'll back away and carry the box to the corner and let someone else make a decision that isn't mine. The door waits the way people do when they are trying to look harmless. I think of last night, the pale cheek in the gap, an eye locked to mine, breath fogging glass closer to the edges than the center. Help is a short word. It doesn't take much space in a mouth. It took all the space in the room anyway. The memory lands in my chest and sits there. I look down at the package again. Moisture has blurred the last two letters of the street. Ashbourne looks softer, like a voice that lost its nerve at the end. The sender's name is nothing but initials and a P.O. box. My thumb grazes the dented corner. The paper gives with a whisper. There's cloth underneath. Not heavy, folded. Behind me, a car slows and does that small, unnatural creep that means the driver is trying to see without looking. The engine mutters. Tires hiss on wet paint. I lift my eyes enough to catch the driver's face through glass. They glance back to the road instantly. Their neck stiffens as they go. I hear myself whisper with a mouth that doesn't want to open. Okay. A squirrel jerks along the fence, stops, freezes, bolts again. The porch boards look almost wet with oil, even though they're dry. I climb the first step. The sound my shoe makes is patient, and not quite a creak. On the second step, the smell opens fully, a sweet rot with bleach laid thin over it. It slides down the back of my throat. I swallow, and my tongue stings, like I bit it. The doorbell is a small nickel button that sits in a clean circle where someone has scrubbed and scrubbed. A faint ring of old paint rims it like a halo. The knob below is dull brass, with the shine rubbed away in a tight oval where hands land over and over. I hover the package under my left arm and raise my right hand. I stop an inch from the bell because the house feels like a person holding a breath, and I hate how much I understand that feeling. I close my eyes for half a second and count to 3 because my brain has learned rituals to keep from falling apart. 1 for the window, 2 for the mouth, 3 for the hand that pressed the glass and left those darker pads I can still see, even when I blink. Kara's text buzzes in my pocket like a live insect. I don't check it. I can't let any sound that belongs to me be the thing that breaks this moment. My fingertip tingles. The nickel looks colder than it should be. The hair along my arms lifts. The porch knows I'm here. That's the thought that lands, unreasonable and complete. I look sideways to buy one more breath and spot how clean the porch corners are. No leaves in the seams, no spider webs, no dead moths. It's the kind of clean you get when someone comes out with a brush and a bucket and a list. It makes the edges look too sharp for a house this old. Across the street, my window is a flat, pale thing in my building's brick. From here, my life looks like a simple square. The sight of it makes my stomach drop, the way your stomach drops when you look down from a balcony and realize the railing isn't as solid as it felt under your hand. I lift my finger toward the bell. The package slips a fraction in the crook of my elbow, and I adjust so I won't drop it. The air in front of the door is warmer than the air at my back. Not much. Enough to know which side of the wood holds bodies. I don't ring. Not yet. That belongs to whatever happens next, and I can't give it to the house until I finish this one breath. I hold the moment as long as I can. The nickel waits under my fingertip, cool and ready. The door, an inch from my knuckles, paints my skin white with reflected light. The runner inside the entryway is visible through the narrow pane beside the frame, brown and cheap and new, the edge already curled where feet scuff it flat. I think, just for a heartbeat, of taking the stairs back down and setting the package on the mat and walking away without sound. The thought tastes like shame and relief. It dissolves before I can swallow it. I push my finger forward, not enough to press, only enough to close the distance, and the moment narrows to a thin wire that hums under my skin. The whole house seems to lean that quarter inch toward me. I make the choice. I decide to go through with it. I let my finger touch cold metal. I'm not pressing yet. I'm only touching. The difference feels huge, and also like nothing at all. I draw in air and keep my breath at the top of my chest, so even that won't make noise. I lift my knuckles the smallest bit. The package shifts again. The porch quietly answers under my feet, as if someone below the boards just shifted their weight to listen. The sour-sweet smell swells. I breathe through my mouth. I feel my pulse in the tip of my finger and in the hinge of my jaw and down both wrists. I picture a long hallway, locks shining like teeth, numbers painted clean and ugly on doors that want to be something else. I picture a pale face at the far end that refused to move as if moving meant surrender. I picture another face behind it, older, listening. I bring my finger down to press the bell. My fingertip barely grazes the bell before the door opens. I don't press. The swing is slow and smooth, as if someone had been holding the weight against the latch, waiting for my skin. Warm air rolls over my face. It smells like thin bleach and something sweet, going soft. The breath of a closed room. It lifts, settles, lifts again. The house breathes shallow. He fills the doorway like it's a habit. Vest buttoned, shirt crisp, a tie that sits exactly where ties sit in old photos. Glasses that catch the light and give none back. His expression is polite, the way a locked drawer is polite. You hesitated. I didn't want to bother anyone. Consider it. I found a package by our bins. For us. Yes. I hold it out. He waits a beat too long, making me aware of my arm. His fingers are cool and dry when he takes it. The paper hardly rustles. Claire. How do you? Across the street. He says it like a weather report, not a guess. The hall opens behind him, white paint smothering something older. A cheap brown runner already curling where heels scuff it. The corridor stretches farther than it should for the width of the house. 6 doors before the light thins. Numbers stenciled in neat black. Locks new and heavy. Metal bright as waking teeth. A small thud from above. Not loud. The sound of a body finding a surface. His jaw tightens the size of a breath. Then his face is a calm map again. You're open on weekends sometimes. We are private. I saw movement last night. We house people who need quiet. Is this still a shelter? We provide safety for those who need it. The words slide in a memorized order. The smell behind him grows sweeter for a moment. Then the bleach crusts over it again. Do people choose to be here? People choose safety in many forms. The far end of the corridor adjusts like an eye. At first, it's just the seam where light runs out. Then a face emerges inside that seam, pale skin soaking what little brightness lives there. A cheek I recognize. The tilt of a jaw I drew with my breath on my own glass. The eye finds me as if it already knows my place on a map. Anna. I hold very still. The air around her has the pause of someone listening for steps. Deeper in the shadow, a taller presence sits, all shoulder and outline, not resolved enough to be a face. A line of hair, a posture that makes my back straighten on reflex. Talia, in outline, or the shape fear uses when it wants to look like defiance. Another silhouette leans a fraction from a farther door. Older. The gray streak at the hairline catches a chalk stripe of light. The head moves first to the hall, then down to the floor, then toward me. A habit born of years. Check the ground, the corners, the door. Marisol. The name lands without sound. The stair above breathes another soft impact, like weight shifting on old wood. He doesn't turn. He studies my eyes the way doctors test a knee. Privacy is important here. I'm across the street. Of course, you watch me. We see who sees us. The line is gentle and lands heavy. I didn't ring. You were deciding. About the package. About stepping over a line. He tips the box into the crook of one arm. Damp opened the paper a little at one corner. White cardboard peeks through. He doesn't glance down when it happens. He watches me. What is this place really? A house across the street. You knew my name. You put it on the wind often enough. The entry air shifts. Not a breeze. The thin displacement of bodies inside rooms. It tastes like scrubbed walls that never had a chance to dry. The runner shows a darker fleck near its middle. Dirt or something else dried flat. My foot wants to step around it even from here. I thought I saw someone ask for help. What kind of help? The kind you mouth when you don't want to be heard. People mouth many things when they are frightened. You make them frightened. Fear is sometimes luggage. It arrives with the person. He tilts his head a degree. In someone else, it might be sympathetic. Here it just fits the angle of his face like a measurement. You've been at your window. At night. At 9:17. The number hits like cold water. I don't ask how he knows it. The answer sits in my chest anyway, because I taught it to him. Do you write it down? Some people keep journals. My building's brick throws back a faint reflection in his lenses. I can't see his eyes. Only a pale rectangle of my own window, small as a card, trapped in the glass. You open your door before anyone rings. We are attentive. Something hit a wall upstairs. Old houses sigh. That wasn't a sigh. Do you have a degree in houses, Claire? Only as a neighbor. And yet. He leaves the sentence incomplete and somehow finishes it anyway. The light at the far end of the corridor narrows, like someone breathed in. Anna doesn't move. She holds the effort like a weight. The taller outline leans a fraction, then eases back. Marisol's hair takes another dull stripe of light and disappears. You can leave parcels on the step next time. I didn't want it to get wet. Thoughtful. What's in it? Something soft. Clothes. Possibly. The last word is almost a smile. Almost. Would you like a tour? The line lands flat, like a card placed on a table. My mouth goes dry. The thought blooms and withers between one pulse and the next. If I say yes, his hand will open the door wider, and the smell will crawl into my hair and decide to stay. I have to go. Of course. Someone's waiting. Good. It was a mistake to come. People say that the first time they do something necessary. A soft clack from somewhere under the stairs. Not wood. Metal easing against metal. He doesn't react, or his face has been trained not to show it. You can always ring. He raises a hand, the smallest amount, as if offering to demonstrate. I realize I've backed half a step without noticing. The porch gives a patient sound under my heel. Good morning, Claire. The door closes the way expensive things close. No slam, no squeal. A tidy click that lands behind my ribs. The hall folds into white paint. The seam of light goes thin, thinner, gone. The smell lingers in a slow fade, like steam in a room cooling 1 degree at a time. I stand watching wood grain, where a face used to be, and feel the wrong, childish urge to knock. I don't move. When I do step back, the mat scratches my heel as if it wants a piece of me. The porch boards hold their breath until my weight leaves them. I go down 1 step and pause, because the house changed the air out here too, and it takes a second to remember how to breathe city again. The street remembers me. A car door thunks somewhere. The cafe's sign hums. Someone laughs and cuts it off mid-sound, like they caught the time with their tongue. I look back once, because the human brain loves mistakes. The door reflects the world in a dull oval, porch warped, my shape widened, no person behind it. The mailbox label glows white like a fresh tooth. Harrow. If the letters ever fade, I think he prints another before anyone notices. Crossing the street, I keep expecting footsteps behind me. There are none. Quiet follows me the way shade follows a person walking past a wall. In the lobby, the air is thinner, and for once, I like it better. The stairwell groans in its normal way, wood telling the truth about being old. I like that too. Inside, I close my door and lean on it enough to feel its spine hold. The room has that slightly used smell of my own life. Paper, dust, heating metal. The house's scent clings to my sleeves like a ghost thumb. I rub my arms and can't rub it off. I don't turn on the lamp. The window holds enough light for shapes. My kettle looks like it's waiting to be useful. The notebook slumps open on the sill, columns and boxes laid out like someone else's plan. The pen beside it has a shallow bite mark in the cap from last night that I don't remember making. I sit, and my legs don't trust the chair, and my hands shake like I'm cold, even though the room isn't. I pick up the pen and hover. Words feel stupid for a full minute. Then they don't. I write fast at first, and then so carefully the letters come out like bones. Door opened before ring. Knew my name. Runner new, curled. Paint white over old. Hall longer than outside. 6 doors before light ends. Numbers stenciled. Locks new. Small thud upstairs. Jaw tight. Anna at end of hall. Talia outline behind. Marisol hair streak. Smell stronger inside. Metal under stairs. Offered a tour. Door closed clean. I underline longer than outside. The ink looks smug or maybe that's my hand. The drawing I make of the hall refuses to be true or false. I place 6 doors, measure with my nail, think about the footprint, think about my window where I've watched the outside of this shape. The proportions argue and don't agree. I cross a line out, and it leaves a dirty scar on the page. Steam will help. I put the kettle on, not because I want tea, but because the thin scream of heat feels like proof that something human still lives here. It clicks, and the small sound is a promise. I lean on the counter and let my spine unclench one rung at a time. Behind my eyelids, the corridor redraws itself in white on black. Numbers float, locks gleam, faces hold still at the edge where light gives up. I lift the kettle before it can wail and set it back on a cold burner. The quiet after is loud. I pour water into an empty mug and watch steam slide up, touch the glass, fade. The window fogs for a second, blurs the house, clears. The house is still there. Of course it is. I go back to the window before the mug cools. The porch sits empty with its 2 clean corners. The mailbox waits. The doorknob wears its dot of streetlight like an old coin. A man at the far corner checks his watch and moves on. A bus breathes, kneels, releases 2 passengers, and leaves. The world continues being itself. The house declines to join. The smell on my sleeves thins to memory. It doesn't leave. I keep catching it when I move my arms. It lives under the heat I generate, just close enough to remind me I brought something home I don't want. I think of my shower and how I could scrub until the water turns my skin pink. I don't move. I text Kara a single line. I went over. She answers fast. You didn't. I did. Come here. Later. You keep using that word. I know. Bring a story or bring silence. Both fine. Okay. I put the phone face down and stare at the house, because looking away feels like lying to myself. The minute hand on my stove limps forward. Light thins and bends into evening. Lamps wake up one by one on the block. Small yellow anchors. The house keeps its dark on a leash. I can feel it tug. I don't plan to wait for anything. I wait anyway. My eyes keep finding the 2nd floor right window. My body knows the number, even when my mouth won't say it. My breath finds a rhythm I didn't choose. The room listens with me. He offered a tour. The thought keeps lifting and settling. If I'd said yes, the corridor would have shortened to the length of my steps. Doors close enough for fingerprints. He would have named rooms without telling truths. I would have tried to read the air. My stomach turns and then steadies. The offer was not an offer. It was a lesson with a trap underneath. I set the empty mug aside and rest my forearms on the sill. The paint is cool and ridged under my skin. A bus sighs and leaves. Tires hiss. Somewhere a slice of laughter cuts off again, as if the block keeps reminding people what hour it is. I don't need a clock to know when numbers matter. My body keeps its own. At the minute I've learned too well, a thin shiver runs the 2nd floor curtain. I lean closer without meaning to. A narrow gap opens, then holds. The pale cheek appears in the slice, then the eye. Not a reflection. A point of focus. I don't touch the glass. I don't lift my hand. I breathe and let the cold of the pain cool my face. Across the street, the mouth shapes something small in the seam of space. No sound. No change in the room's air. Just the shape. Don't come back. Heat crawls up my neck. I almost nod. I almost say yes from inside my empty apartment. I hold still instead because stillness is the only thing that doesn't feel like a mistake yet. The gap stutters. The face moves back. Not a retreat so much as a flinch pulled by something behind her. The porch stays empty. The door holds its glowless oval. The world hums around the quiet like bees around a stone. I keep my hands on the sill to stop them shaking. I don't trust my legs to stand when I tell them to. I don't call anyone. I don't look away. I understand that I crossed the street and something crossed back. I can taste it when I swallow. The house sits there, and the air between us feels thinner than it should. I don't move for a long time after the words form on the glass. The room holds its breath with me until the ache in my ribs forces air back in. The second-floor gap shrinks to a thin seam and then closes completely. There's only curtain again. Only the slow pulse of streetlight on the porch boards. The house looks like it always does, and the look means less than the way my body won't stop vibrating. I sit, because my legs don't trust me. The chair takes the weight with a tired click. My notebook is open and waiting, its tidy lines a dare. I press the pen down hard enough to leave a dent in the page before the ink arrives. Don't come back. The letters look smaller than the moment. I add claustrophobic details to make them feel bigger. Second floor right window, gap 2 fingers wide, mouth-formed shape, no sound, breath-fogged glass at corners, not center. Face pulled back, too fast, like someone yanked from off-screen. My hand cramps. I shake it out and keep writing. I went over today. Harrow. Hall longer than outside. 6 doors before light thins. Locks new. Numbers neat. Soft thud up top. Metal under stairs. Offered tour. Closed door. The smell came home on my sleeves. The radiator ticks and then quiets. The apartment settles like an animal circling before sleep. Only sleep is a joke, and whatever part of me is supposed to relax refuses. I stand, then sit again. I drink water I don't want. It tastes like pennies. I turn off the lamp because its hum is starting to chew at my nerves. The room goes soft and gray around the window's rectangle, and I feel myself gravitate to it the way a moth finds a screen. I don't want to be a person who watches a house argue with itself. I know I am already. At 9:20, movement up high brushes the corner of my eye. 3rd floor, center. At first, it's only a change in the way the curtain hangs. Then a hand lifts the edge a fraction, and a sliver of the room slides into view. No lamp, no glow. Just a thin wash of borrowed streetlight, the kind that outlines bones and forgets about skin. A face enters the slice, not timid, not meek. The chin levels with the sill and holds there. The posture reads like a word. No. She does not mouth anything. She doesn't need to. She raises one finger to her lips and holds the gesture long enough for it to enter my body like a pin. The finger is steady. The eyes are steady. The command is simple. I freeze. Even my breathing tries to disappear. The woman watches me watching her, then drops the curtain with a small snap that seems too loud for the distance. The window goes dark. A beat later, another 3rd-floor panel shivers, like someone brushed past it on the inside. Then the house corrects itself, returning to quiet, as if quiet is a person whose feelings it doesn't want to hurt. A car idles at the far corner and then changes its mind. Tail lights smear red on wet asphalt. I hear the distant slicer noise of a train, thin and high, then gone. My skin feels too tight across my shoulders. I rub the spot where the tension lives and come away with the ghost of that sour-sweet smell on my fingers. It's faint, but it's there. I could wash. I don't. I stay. A message lights my screen before I remember I left the phone face down. You okay? I type a reply and erase it. I don't know how to explain to a neighbor that a stranger on the 3rd floor told me to be quiet with a look. I don't know how to explain that another stranger in a locked hallway told me not to come back with a mouth that didn't move enough to make sound. I send 2 words. Not sure. Her dot appears and disappears. Door open if you need it. Thanks. I leave it there, because I can't step into someone else's light with this on me. The quiet begins to hum again. The street goes a little more black than blue. Footsteps from the apartment upstairs travel along the ceiling and land in my room like faint taps. A burst of laughter 2 doors down rises and cuts off. Somewhere a cabinet closes. The block folds into night. I try to eat and fail. Bread goes to paste in my mouth. Tea tastes like nothing. The kettle's little scream turns my spine to string, and then it's just heat and water again. I set the mug down untouched and go back to the window, because it feels like the only honest thing in this room. I don't know what I expect. A signal, a mistake, another mouth making another shape that will take over my next day. The 2nd floor windows remain dark. The 3rd floor curtains stay lined up, neutral as a uniform. The porch keeps its clean edges. The mailbox holds its white plate like a smile. Harrow. A fan turns on somewhere in the house. Not a big one. A small mechanical breath that starts, holds, stops. The kind of sound you only hear when you're listening for everything. It returns once, then not again. The timing feels intentional. Most things here do. I open the notebook and make myself translate my fear back into lines. Contradiction. Warning versus silence. One mouth says, "Don't come back." One finger says, "Be quiet." Which one is for me? Which one is for me to deliver to myself? My handwriting slants harder than usual. The page begins to fill with arrows and circles that mean nothing outside my skull. I draw the 2nd floor right window and the 3rd floor center above it, and put a tiny mouth and a tiny finger in place. If I look at it later, I'll hate it. Right now, it makes the feeling inside me visible enough to look away from. I give up on the page and stare out again. Motion flickers for a heartbeat in the 1st floor left window, a slow movement like a person's hip passing a doorway. The curtain doesn't lift. The light behind it is a weak gold for a second, and then goes out, as if someone turned a lamp off before standing up. It's probably nothing. It makes my skin go cold anyway. A siren whines past several streets over, a thin wail that slides off brick and gets lost in air. I stand at the window until standing hurts my lower back. Then I sit on the floor and lean against the wall where I can still see. The wood at my spine is solid. The paint is cool. Dust lives in the baseboard seam. I count those thoughts as mercy, because they belong to a normal life. Time stretches and snaps and stretches again. I glance at the clock too often and then refuse to look at it at all. When I do check, it is later than I thought. When I look back out, the view hasn't changed. The house holds its posture like a dancer, in a pose no one asked for, and no one can stop. I'm not sure when the first thud arrives. It might be the building. It might be my heartbeat misfiring. It's small. It lives at the edge of hearing. A minute later, a second thud answers the first from farther away. I hold my breath and realize I wish for thunder, because thunder would belong to the sky, not to the house. The sky refuses me. I stand because I can't stand sitting anymore. I turn my back on the window. The room throws my shadow long across the rug. My face in the dark glass looks like a stranger who knows exactly what I'm thinking. I try a laugh, just to hear my own mouth make a shape that isn't a plea. It comes out wrong. Something hits my door. Not a polite tap, a single hard knock that is all knuckle and bone and intention. The sound arrives like a shove. The wood under my palm flinches before my hand even gets there. My first thought is Kara, My second is every bad idea I've ever had, knocking at once. I hesitate a breath, then step close and put my eye to the peephole. The hall warps into a fisheye tube. The overhead bulb hums. The carpet looks like it always does, beige with a stain, shaped like a continent 3 doors down. The hallway is empty. I hold the peephole too long and make myself dizzy. I blink it off. I lay my ear to the door and hear nothing but the hallway's hum. I don't say hello. I don't want to hear my voice in this air. I wait. My skin waits with me. The apartment hears itself. The building breathes. I check the time because the urge is stronger than the sense that looking gives the moment weight. It's nothing special. Not an hour that means anything to me. Not one of the numbers the house has taught me. I look again anyway. The way you look into a dark room twice to prove to your own brain there's nothing there. I should text Kara. I don't. The screen's light would feel like a flare in a forest at night. I plant my feet on the boards and listen. When footsteps arrive, they arrive wrong. They are faint and light and slow, the kind you make when you don't want another person to know you're there. But there is only me. The steps travel from left to right past my apartment, pause, then travel back. The sound is a fabric sound, more than a weight sound, a brush, a shift. I picture someone standing barefoot on carpet and setting their heel down second instead of first. The thought makes my stomach drop. I look through the peephole again. Nothing. The hallway stares back in weird fisheye calm. The steps continue, quieter now, as if the air is teaching them how to disappear. My fingers find the chain lock and hold it even though the deadbolt is set. I don't know whether I mean to keep it in place or unhook it. My hand can't decide. A soft scrape near the bottom of the door. Not the metal of a key. Cloth. A small exhale, like breath against wood. Then silence that isn't silence, just the pause between one small intention and the next. I back away one step, and the board under my heel gives a shy complaint. The sound feels too loud. It echoes in my mouth. I imagine it traveling under the door and introducing me to whoever stands on the other side. I go still. I count to 5 because 5 feels gentle. I count to 10 because 10 feels like a rule. Nothing else touches the door. I wait long enough for the apartment to show me new noises I didn't know it had. A faint click in the wall, probably a pipe contracting. The sigh of air as the heat cuts and returns. The slow shift of something in the fridge. Each sound makes me jump a little less. Each not sound makes me jump a little more. I walk back to the window because I don't know what else to do, and I don't want to stand holding my door like a person in a bad movie. From here, the hallway might as well be another country. The house across the street is where I left it. The second floor curtain is a flat sheet. The third floor panels are perfect. The porch glows a wrong little oval of light that isn't light at all, only the way my eyes insist on finding shape where something glossy throws them back. The air that slipped under my door tastes faintly like the house. It finds my tongue even though I keep my mouth shut. It will not be ignored. I rub my forearms hard enough to raise heat, and still the scent sticks, stubborn as a stain. My phone buzzes in the quiet. The sound pitches me forward. I catch the device before it can light the room and let its glow spill low on the counter instead. Kara again. You up? Yeah. All good. Got a weird knock. You want me to come down? No. Sure. Yeah. If I don't hear back in 5, I'm texting again. Okay. I should tell her to stop. I don't. I look at the door. I consider saying the name of the house out loud. Then I don't do that either. Names are small magic even when you don't believe in magic. I've already given enough tonight to things that take. A floorboard squeaks in the hall. A thin question. The sound comes from the far end, near the stairs. Light feet, or no feet at all. The steps begin again, moving away this time. The carpet breath hushes, then hushes again, as if someone is choosing each place to land, like an answer on a test. They reach the stairwell and fade into a small breath of air down the shaft. I lean into the door without meaning to, and feel the tiniest draft pull at my skin, through the gap where wood meets frame. I want to be brave. I want to open the door and prove there is nothing outside. The chain would catch, and I would see the hall empty, and the sight would pour cool water on my head. Or it wouldn't. Or I would open it to a shape I can't live with, and the moment would not pour anything anywhere. I stand there, with my knuckles resting on wood, and my answer trapped in the space where my mouth would be. The building remembers I exist and gives me a sound I know. An elevator in a different wing rumbles. Pipes ping. Someone upstairs drops something soft and swears into their pillow. Life. Warm and irritating and alive. I breathe again like I'm allowed. Then 3 knocks hit my door in a row, quick and close, like knuckles that know exactly where to land. Not loud. Certain. I don't put my eye to the peephole this time. I step back and hold the chain with one hand and the knob with the other, and feel the cold of the metal climb my fingers. My throat tightens in a new way. My heart goes quiet, then violent, then quiet again. I swallow, and my mouth is dry, and the swallow makes a sound I can hear, and I hate that too. I wait for a voice. I don't get one. I wait for a shuffle. None. I wait for the thing that explains the thing I am feeling. The hallway hum keeps humming. The door just stands there. My brain shows me a long list of faces for who could be on the other side, and then erases them one by one until it hands me the ones I don't want to see. I think of the shushing finger in the 3rd-floor window. I think of the mouth that mouthed, "Don't come back," and what a cruel joke it would be if the lesson arrived here, at my door, within arm's reach of my bed. I loosen my grip on the knob and step away. 2 steps, 3. The room keeps the emergency shape it has held for an hour. The window stares. The chair waits. The notebook wants my hand, and I give it nothing. I listen. Footsteps again, but now they are below my floor, drifting down the stairwell as if someone walks on felt. They grow softer until my ear can't find them. They don't vanish. They just fall past a point I can measure. The building takes them in and gives me back my own pulse. I am not proud of the sound that leaves my mouth. It's not a cry. It's a small, low sound an animal makes when it knows the fence is electric and touches it anyway. I cover it with my hand, and the heat of my palm is a mercy. My phone buzzes again. Still up. Yes. You sure you don't want me to come down? Later. Claire. I'm okay. Text again in 10 or I'm knocking. Okay. I set the phone face down and let the room take my weight, because I can't hold it any longer. I slide down the wall and sit on the floor and lean my head back and close my eyes. Behind my lids, the hallway redraws itself in thin white lines. 6 doors, numbers neat, locks bright. The end where the light darkens, a cheekbone waiting like a landmark, a finger in a different window telling me to be quiet, a door in my building insisting on being part of the conversation. I open my eyes to the same room I've had all day, and the kind of quiet that gets under fingernails. I look at the door one more time, and then at the window, because I have to choose somewhere to put my face. The house across the street holds still as a photograph. A wind finally moves low along the curb and plays with a wet leaf, dragging it a foot and letting it go. Nothing else changes. Not the porch, not the mailbox, not the blank of the second floor, not the place where a face was a minute ago or an hour ago or in the last life I lived before tonight. I hear the stairs sigh, very faint, then nothing. The last thought I let myself have before I kill the lamp is a simple one. If I'm being warned from two directions, it means both directions know I can hear. That feels like the part of the story where you learn which way is the way out. It also feels like the part where doors start locking one by one. I turn the light off and let the dark rise. The window finds my outline and keeps it. The house keeps me too, like a held breath that won't let go. The hall behind my door stays empty, or it doesn't, and the sound of footsteps reaches the next flight down, then the next, and then there's only the hum of the building and my pulse, and the kind of silence that waits. I wake into a narrow kind of morning. Sleep came in scraps and slid off. Every time my eyes closed, the knock returned in the same pattern, hard and close. When I did sink under, I dreamed of doors that opened the width of a coin and never more. My head feels packed with wet cotton. The room tilts and steadies. I sit up and listen to the apartment breathe wrong. The radiator lets out a thin metallic sigh and taps like it's remembering a word. Pipes make small throat noises in the wall. The fridge hum sits one pitch too high, the kind of sound that makes your jaw tighten without asking. I rub my arms and the smell that rode home on my sleeves answers me. Sweet, then bleach. A low rot threaded through something scrubbed. I slept in a clean shirt, and still it found my skin. It is faint in the kitchen, heavier at the window, heaviest where I stood last night and tried to be a person with a door. I scrub my forearms at the sink until the skin burns. The scent thins but doesn't leave. I shove yesterday's sweater into a plastic bag and knot it tight like I'm sealing a specimen. The bag fogs from my breath, and I hate that I look like someone acting out a ritual no one taught me. I open the window an inch to air the place. The air that comes in is rain-cold and honest, and carries the same hint of overripe underneath. The house has found how to seep. Coffee helps for a swallow. The second swallow makes my nerves wake up and hate me. I drink anyway because a ritual is still a ritual, even when it doesn't save anything. I press my forehead to the cool glass and let the cup warm both hands. The street wears a dull morning gray. People pass with the faces of people who made it through a night and do not want to discuss how. Across the way, the house stands like it always stands in daylight. Curtains clipped straight, porch at attention, corners too clean for this block. The mailbox label looks fresher than yesterday. Maybe it's my eyes. Maybe someone likes to replace it before the white even thinks about going yellow. My notebook is wrong by half an inch. Nothing dramatic, just off. The pen is a finger length higher than where I left it, not across the coil, but above it. It's the kind of difference that would mean nothing to someone else. It's the kind that catches me the way a loose tooth catches your tongue. I know the spot where I set it. I know the small crescent shadow it casts at noon. I pick it up and the paper warms under my thumb like skin. I tell myself it was me, and I don't remember. My stomach doesn't agree. A glass sits mouth down on the dish rack. I always set them mouth up to dry. A ring of water marks the counter under it the size of a coin. I stand there and try to rewind my hands from last night. The picture won't resolve. I flip the glass, wash it again, and leave it upright, watching new beads form and slide. The phone buzzes. You in there? Yeah. You need anything? I'm okay. You keep using that word like it'll become true. Later. Later it is. I pocket the phone and make small human tasks into lifelines. Wipe counters, tidying. Dishes nested quietly. The towel squeaks and the sound is a thin comfort. When I turn toward the door, my shoulder brushes it, and the memory of the knocks hits clean enough that my skin tries to climb backward. I carry the sealed sweater bag to the basement laundry, and the building's smell is different down there. Dust, cold concrete, pipes honest about being old. When I come back up, the sweet bleach breath waits at my window, like it knew when to arrive. I widen the gap and let in more cold. It doesn't drive the other scent out. It just gives it a different place to sit. I stand on the rug, feet apart, hands on my ribs, and breathe slow, because counting is the one tool that still answers me. In for 4, out for 6. The small panic clears from the edges. My heart stops trying to punch its way through and chooses something steadier. I hold on to steady like a rung. I tell myself not to look across the street. Then I do. The curtains show me nothing I can use. A third-floor panel trembles a millimeter like fabric will when air moves farther back in a room. The porch rail gleams in a hard line. The doorknob wears its dot of light like an eye that isn't open. Nothing. Nothing. And the effort of not seeing turns into its own work. I think about going outside just to ruin the shape of the morning. I pick up my keys and set them down. The hallway outside my door feels like a coin flip I'm too tired to call. I make tea. Steam fogs the lower corner of the window. When it clears, a red fleck holds in the second-floor dark, small as an eyelash, color of a machine. A dot. Not lamp, not TV, not candle. A pinprick that lives on electronics and sleeps when the room sleeps. I tell myself it's a surge strip, a clock, a speaker light. The dot shifts 3 degrees left and steadies. Up along the same small arc my shoulder made when I leaned. I keep still. The dot keeps me. I raise my hand a fraction. The dot ticks up a fraction too, so slight a quick mind could dismiss it. My mind is not quick this morning. It's exact in the worst way. Cold rides up my arms. Heat follows and cancels nothing. I step back slow, as if speed might tug a thread connecting me to that point. I click off my lamp so there's less of me to feed to glass. The dot bobs, steadies, like a hand across the street, tried to move smoothly, and missed for a heartbeat. I set my mug down gently, and it bumps anyway, and I flinch, like a child caught. The phone rings. I answer because hearing my own name in a voice I know is a thing I need. Hi, Mom. You sound tired. I didn't sleep much. You always notice every noise in a new place. The brain invents company. There were knocks. Neighbors, heat pipes, a broom. People do things at odd hours. There's a smell. Welcome to the city. Buy a candle. Better, go for a walk. You're 23, not 90. There's a house across the street. You told me. That boarding house. You research yourself sick. Then you scare yourself with it. Something's off. You've always had an imagination that walks ahead of you. I saw a red light. It moved. You're wound tight. Call your friend with the snacks. Kara. Go be in a room with a person who laughs at bad shows. You're not going to win a staring contest with another building. Okay. Eat something. Call me later. I will. Promise me, Claire. I promise. I hang up, and the promise sits like a coin on my tongue. The dot rests in the corner of my vision, like a pupil that doesn't blink. I pick up the notebook and set it precisely where I want it. Spine aligned to the sill, pen across the coil, nib to the left. The small order calms a muscle just below my ribs. Footsteps slide up the stairwell, slow and distant, and go away. A cabinet knocks wood somewhere. In me, the memory of last night's knock wakes up like a bruise. Across the street, the dot slides down and vanishes, as if someone covered it with a palm. When it returns, it's shifted left, the kind of change you get when a person reaches around a machine or past another body. Small movement, big fact. I retreat from the glass until the scent drops out of my nose and cool air takes its place. Relief lands like a soft weight. I clean more than the place needs. Corners, baseboards, the ledge behind the radiator. My knees ache and I welcome the ache. I line up spice jars by height and label facing. It's ridiculous how much that helps. When I pass my table, the torn envelope I wrote on last night is crooked. I don't remember leaving it that way. I make it parallel to the edge, and the paper clicks into rightness. A stupid private victory. It keeps me upright for another block of time. Afternoon thins. The dot blinks a few more times. I learn its patience. I keep to the shadowed part of my room, so my outline is harder to draw. I drink water, and it tastes like a penny rubbed on my tongue. I text Kara what I always text. Later. She sends a thumbs up that makes my eyes sting, and I pretend the sting is from the open window. I move around my own life like I'm trying not to wake a sleeping dog with a bad history. I place things instead of setting them down. I rinse, ease, line up. When I finally glance full at the window again, the dot is gone. In its place, another change. A second-floor curtain that never opens is open. Not a slit, a full palm width pulled back and held there. The room behind it isn't lit the way rooms are. It glows with screen light, monitors in a grid, 3 across the desk, 2 stacked above, others on the wall. A cheap swivel chair angled like a person about to sit and not sitting yet. Cables loop and vanish into a hole in the wall. No visible body, just a wall of eyes. The nearest screen shows my block from the angle of their porch. The next shows my building's stairwell with that fisheye warp cheap cameras love. Another shows my lobby. A fourth shows a close familiar rectangle. The frame of my own window, skewed by another lens. My brain refuses it for 3 seconds. Then my body believes. I see the ridged paint on my sill, the small chip in the left corner, the cup with the half-dead plant I keep meaning to fix, the smear a trapped fly left last week. The camera adjusts, and the picture stutters. It's live. It's mine, not mine anymore. My mouth fills with blood because I bit my lip without feeling it. I put my hand on the counter to keep my legs from running in 3 directions. The screens throw that aquarium light that turns skin to wax and rooms to tanks. Another monitor shows the 3rd floor hall in the house, narrow and numbered like someone's mouth full of tidy teeth. Another frames the porch just so, the mailbox label crisp enough to read. Harrow, black on white like a name tag pinned to a shirt. I make a small, stupid move. I lay my palm on my own sill. On the screen in that dark room, my hand appears from the bottom of the frame and flattens a half-second late. The delay hits me harder than the sight. The echo means there are 2 of me right now. Me and a version that arrives after. A ghost that updates. The red dot returns at the edge of the grid, a punctuation mark drifting toward the screens like a gnat that learned lines. It pauses near the monitor with my frame and holds as if sighting. The chair stays a posture without a person. The curtain stays hooked. The room swallows light and spits it back as squares that don't blink. A grid that is not mine. A shape that wants me. My voice leaves my mouth before I plan it. The word disappears in my air. On the wall across the street, my mouth shapes it a heartbeat later, small and flat in the square that owns me. The phone rings again. Mom, you didn't call me back. I'm here. You're short of breath. Go outside. Eat something. Find your friend. I know when you start circling. Don't live in your head all day. There's a room across the street full of screens. Every office in the city is full of screens. These show my window. You're frightening yourself, Claire. That's what you do. Stop feeding it. Step away, love. I have to go. Promise me you'll get food. Real food. I promise. I end the call and realize my promises have the shape of a person holding a rope for herself. I look at the wall of monitors and the square, where I am a softened ghost. I test another move. I step left. Half a second later, the pale smudge of me shifts left in their square. I step right. It follows. I lift my hand, and the hand on the screen rises after. The echo is the worst part. It turns my body into a command that always arrives second. I back away from the window until the edge of the table finds my thighs. I sit. The chair accepts me like it has known my weight for years. The red point dies. The monitors keep living. My notebook sits where I set it, a small order in a room that feels undone. I open to a clean page and write 3 words. They are watching. They look childish and correct. I underline them once and keep the pressure light so I don't tear the paper. My hands have a tremor now, and the wobble shows. I set the pen down and press my palms to the table to quiet the shake. I feel the faint ridges of old paint through the wood, and the apartment reminds me it is made of things I can name, even when the naming doesn't fix the fear. Across the street, the surveillance room stays open, a mouth that forgot how to close. The chair holds its angle. The curtain refuses to fall. The square with my window keeps me even when I leave the frame, and the blank stillness of my own glass on that wall makes me feel as if I've left a tooth somewhere. I move to the sink and run water over my hands until the cold argues with the blood and wins. I lift my dripping fingers to my face and inhale clean tap smell to push back the sweet rot. It doesn't go. The house owns a seat at the table of my life now and doesn't need permission to sit. Behind the curtain, the square showing my window lowers a few inches, like a camera on an arm, tilting down to study my baseboard. I think of the hole mice use in cartoons and hate that my brain still makes jokes when it's afraid. I dry my hands and speak to 4 walls. I see you. On the grid across the street, my mouth repeats the words half a beat late. No sound travels, only shape. Evening leans. Lamps wake up on the block. The screens glow brighter by comparison, like wounds in the dark. I stand there, not closing my curtain and not opening it further, stuck in the space where a choice doesn't feel like safety, but a delay still feels like control. The kettle clicks. The radiator sighs. Somewhere far down a hall, a door shuts in an ordinary way, and I am so grateful for the honesty of that noise I could cry. The surveillance room keeps humming in its own wrong language. I put my palms back on the table and wait, because there is nothing else to do but watch the thing that wants to watch me. The window holds my shape. The wall across the street holds my square. Night thickens. The house breathes shallow. I match it without meaning to. Night leans in until the window swallows the room. I turn the lamp off so the glass won't throw my face back at me. Across the street, the surveillance room still glows with its cold aquarium light. The square that shows my window lags half a breath behind my movements, like a ghost copying me badly. I sit on the floor by the sill, so the frame cuts the dark over my head. The wood is cool through my jeans. My notebook rests on my knees. I don't write. I keep my breath shallow and even, counting so my heart has something simple to do. The city moves in small sounds. A bus exhales and drags itself on. Tires hiss. Someone laughs and swallows it. The house keeps its own breath, thin and patient. At 9:13, the curtains don't move. At 9:15, nothing. The surveillance grid dims a shade, brightens again, as if a hand crossed a lamp. My fingers press into my kneecaps until the ache becomes a place to stand. At 9:17, the second-floor right curtain jerks open with the speed of practice. A pale cheek fills the slit, then the eye, then the corner of a mouth that holds still by force. Anna claims the gap like she stole it. No sound, no shape of words. She lifts a sheet of paper and tips it to catch the streetlight, then plants it flat to the glass with both hands. The page shines damp. The letters are thick and blunt, marker lines that bled at the edges. Run. The stroke of the N stutters halfway down, a small tremor frozen in ink. She shifts the paper a fraction to the left, making use of every tooth of light. Another hand comes from the dark behind her and catches the corner like a trap springing. The page bends. The word tears for a second into halves. Rue survives in the gap. N vanishes, folds, reappears, disappears again. The curtain snaps shut like a mouth biting down. A sound leaves me, thin and wrong. I only know it happened because my breath panics. My palms are wet. The room tilts and rights itself. I look up at the surveillance room because a part of me still wants proof and hates itself for wanting. The monitors glow. The square that shows my window shows me curled small on the floor, half a second late. Of course, there isn't a square for the second-floor right window. The room watches what it wants, not what I need. Fabric holds. The slit stays gone. My eyes burn from staring at a smooth surface as if I can press a crack into it. The taste of bleach and rot balances on the back of my tongue like I'm holding a coin there. I don't move for a full minute. When I finally do, it's my body deciding to practice, standing later. Minutes stretch into a shape I have to climb. A car idles too long at the corner and rolls away. Somewhere, a neighbor shifts on a chair. I want to text Kara and don't, because I don't know how to open her door and pour this into the room without leaving a stain. At 9:21, milk-thin light breathes around the third-floor center. A face leans into the seam. The chin comes first, level, not apologizing. Talia listens before she looks, head tipped, like a person trained to weigh quiet. In one quick triangle she scans. Surveillance room, second floor right, me. The curtain eats a half inch, as if pulled by a string. She doesn't flinch. She holds. Then something inside tugs her. A pull you learn to obey, to stay alive. She's gone. My throat closes on air and opens again with effort. I force my spine straight and feel sweat cooling along it. The notebook edges my palm. I pick up the pen and write the word, because the word needs a place to live that isn't my chest. Run. It looks ridiculous and too loud on the page. I add the time, the window, another line, quick and neat. Second-hand pulled pages. Writing makes the moment smaller. Smaller is use. At 9:27, the third floor left lifts 2 fingers width. Marisol eases into view, as if the air itself could bruise her. The gray stripe in her hair takes a dull light that makes it visible and not bright. Her eyes go down the street, then to the surveillance room, then to me. She points down, not toward the house, toward my building. 2 taps with her finger like a teacher drilling direction into memory. Then she lifts her hand and moves it clean across her throat. Not a threat, a sign, the simplest true word for danger. Her face doesn't perform panic, it performs instruction. She holds the line for 3 beats, so I can't claim confusion later. She slips back before the curtain can be yanked, a move that says she knows lines and where to stop. Survival is a language with a grammar you don't forget. I stand because the floor feels like water under me. The room is a mess of normal objects that look obscene in their calm. A mug, a spoon, a dead black screen, and the faint self-ghost it holds. I go to the door. The chain is set. The deadbolt sits where I left it. Wood, metal, hinges. I put my ear to the paint and hear the building's plain noise. Electricity in the walls, air rising up the shaft, a distant key trying to find a lock that isn't mine. No footsteps. For a second, I feel proud of myself for not inventing a thing to fear. Then the scratching starts. Not a skittering, not an accident. Slow, deliberate, just below the handle. The sound of nails dragged across wood with intention, traveling from the strike plate to the lower panel and back. Measured strokes like someone tracing the shape of my door. My mouth opens, and air leaves without a word. The hair on my arms lifts. I lean in, and my breath fogs a faint oval on the paint. The scratching pauses as if it's listening to the fog. It resumes, softer now. Long, shallow lines that will show in morning light. I look through the peephole, and the hall warps in that fisheye way. The bulb hums. The carpet holds its permanent stain. Nothing moves. The sound belongs to the inch between my ear and the wood, to a place that doesn't offer pictures. I step back, because backing away is the only choice my body trusts. The scratching stops. Silence lays itself over the panel like a cloth. I count to 5, and then to 10. Counting is the only version of magic I still believe in. I text Kara. Are you up? Yeah. Something's at my door. Want me to come? No. Call if that changes. Okay. I set the phone face up. For once, the light helps. My hand shakes when I put it down, and the cheap case clicks on wood too loud. The room holds the click like a secret. The scratching returns, slower, as if whoever is out there learned the grain and adjusted pressure to make the sound without effort. 20 seconds, maybe less. Time is a trickster. It stops. Then a soft press touches the bottom of the door and lifts, like a palm placed there and taken away. I pull the door open as far as the chain allows, because I am done with only imagining. The chain checks me with a sharp little jerk that sounds like a choked word. The gap is 2 inches of hallway air. Low light, carpet, no body. I inhale dust and the trace of someone's dinner and the stale heat every building makes at night. I close the door with both hands and feel my bones through the panel. Pale lines score the paint from the strike plate down toward the lower panel. Shallow. Enough to catch a fingertip. My stomach dips. Proof hurts differently than fear. I want to scrub it away. I don't. I take a picture and then another because one can always be a mistake. The second is worse. I go to the window to give my fear a different shape. The surveillance room holds its unnatural hush. The square with my window shows me lifting my phone, late by that half beat. Second floor right is blank. Third floor left holds its curtain flat. Third floor center breathes a thread of light. The house wears its bland face like a learned trick. I rest my forehead against the glass. What do you want from me? The square across the street captures my mouth after the sound is gone. Watching myself ask is worse than asking. I turn away. I pace the length of the room. 9 boards there, 9 boards back. The number steadies me. I think about calling my mother and hearing her throw blankets of common sense over a fire that isn't smoke yet, but feels hot. I think about opening my door and laying my cheek to the carpet like a child. Neither thought helps. I need something that happens when I am not standing here. I need proof I can hold, not a feeling I can drown in. I pull a roll of gaffer's tape from the drawer and dig out my old phone from the nest of cords. The screen is cracked, but the camera wakes up. Grainy. Fine. I turn the brightness all the way down, kill sound and vibration, stop the screen from sleeping. I open the door into the hall that has learned how to be harmless in daylight and ambiguous at night. Kneeling, I tape the phone low on the wall across from my door, angled to catch my handle, my number, the peephole, the strip of carpet where a palm might rest. I adjust until the frame holds all those small facts. The lens breathes and settles. Footsteps and voices come from the far end. The neighbor with the gold hoops and the man who always carries too many grocery bags turn the corner. They find me crouched on the carpet with tape in one hand and my socks picking up dust. We do the dance people do when they agree to see almost nothing. Working on a thing. Looks like it. Camera test. Cool. They pass and take their normal with them. I tug the tape. It holds. Back inside, I set the chain, the deadbolt, the weight of my whole chest against the panel, and feel the apartment take it. I pour water, and the tap clanks and clears and runs clean. I don't drink it. The notebook sits open on the sill, with the heavy word on its face like a warning label. I slide the book under the plant cup. It makes no difference. I drag a chair next to the door and sit with my ear turned toward the seam like a fox listening to the snow. 10 minutes. Nothing. 10 more. The building breathes. The elevator sighs in a different wing. My phone lights on the table. Update. Scratching again. Stopped. Police. No. Why? What would I say? Tell the truth. I put a phone in the hall. Good. You want to crash here? Not tonight. Text me if it starts again. I mean it. I know. I turn the screen down and let the dark come back. The chair is bad for my spine, and I let it be. I listen until listening becomes its own noise. The scratching doesn't return. When the hour thins to the part of night that feels like a hallway with no doors, I stand and stretch until my back pops. The apartment echoes a small relief through the floorboards like an answer. I go to the window, out of habit I can't break, and stare at the surveillance room because it is easier than staring at my own door. The chair sits angled, waiting for a person who must be just out of frame. The wall of squares holds its ghosts, mine among them, a half-second slow. I undo the chain and open the door fast before caution can spoil the motion. The hall lies still. The taped phone throws a tiny green wink that means alive. I resist the urge to check it now. Patience can be a tool. I press the tape with 2 fingers. It holds. I shut the door again and stack the chain, the bolt, the lock, and my body like bricks. I lie down on the bed without undressing. Shoes off, socks off, clothes on. My hands rest flat on my stomach so I can feel the rise and fall. The radiator ticks once and sleeps. A neighbor laughs and stuffs the laugh into a pillow until it turns into breath. My eyes close, and the screens come back. A wall of squares, my own face in a smaller one, arriving late. I open my eyes, and the image doesn't leave. It never does right away. Sleep comes like a truce written in pencil. I wake when the room is smudged with that thin gray the city gives, just before the light changes names. The chair by the door is where I left it. The plant leans toward nothing. My mouth tastes like metal, The smell of the house has thinned to a film that still won't wipe off. I stand on cold boards and unlatch the chain. The hall looks like the hall. The phone sits where I left it, patient and full. I peel the tape slow so the sound won't step into anyone else's morning. Back inside, the locks fall into place, with their small, honest clicks. I set the phone on the table like it's a creature that could bruise. My hands leave damp prints on my jeans when I wipe them. I prop the phone against the sugar jar. I breathe once, twice, the way people do in waiting rooms. Then, I press play. The video opens on the hallway, the way I remember it when I taped the phone up. Low light, humming bulb, a strip of carpet the color of dust, my door centered in the frame. For the first minute, nothing happens except the lens breathing as it decides what shadows mean. The timestamp in the top corner inches forward. I brace myself and speed the playback a little. The hall drags past like an empty throat. Time stamps into a softer hour. 12 turns to 1, 1 to 2. My door sits steady with its small bright peephole, like an eye that refuses to blink. I catch my own shadow once when I opened to check the tape, a smear crossing the threshold, a hand testing the chain, then gone. The video moves on. The hallway turns into a picture you could hang, and no one would notice. At 2:19, a blur edges into the upper right corner. Nothing fast, just the kind of change only a recording can keep you from arguing with. A shape lowers itself into the frame, and then down further, down and down, until it's a person folded at knee and hip, crouched in the strip of carpet opposite my door. The head tilts toward my lock and holds there, as if breathing the crack between wood and metal. The figure never looks up, not once. The posture is wrong in a way that creeps into bone. Too balanced, too patient. The spine curves with intention, not discomfort. The hands are bare and pale. They don't fidget. They don't test the latch or pick at the chain. They rest on thighs for a long time. After a while, one lifts, not to the lock, but to the door itself, hovering a hair above the paint as if feeling heat. The fingers spread and hold. The nails are short and clean. A person who trims. A person who plans the edges of things. I freeze the frame and lean until the pixels make squares. The hood of a sweatshirt maybe, or hair falling forward. I can't see a face. The head tips, ear turned toward the wood. They listen. It goes on so long, I have to reset what I know about time. At 3, the figure is still there. At 3:40, still. The posture never breaks. No shifting to ease a knee. No shake to bring blood back to a foot. The stillness is inhuman only because I have a human body, and it wants to move. At 4:10, the hand drifts up again, this time lower, to the baseboard, and presses there, with the same patience. Palm to paint. The contact leaves no smudge I can see. The fingertips lift one by one, like a person memorizing a piano they won't get to play. The ear leans closer. I'm in my own bed on the other side of that panel, awake and asleep in turns. And here, in the little screen, someone keeps watch on the door that keeps me. When the figure finally rises, it does so in one clean motion, a coil, released. The shadow elongates, steps out of frame, returns and crouches again, as if pulled by a string. Something about the repetition makes my stomach go cold. The timestamp clicks forward. At 5:40, the crouch. At 6:11, the rise. The bulb hums on. The empty stain down the hall holds its useless map of a country no one wants to visit. I pause the video because my hands won't stop shaking, and the motion blur makes me sick. I stand and pace the 9 boards between table and sink. The kettle clicks, remembering it exists. My mouth tastes like I have been chewing a coin. The smell from the house is a film on my tongue. I swallow. It doesn't leave. I press play again, because not watching is worse. At some point in the hour between 6 and 7, the figure is gone. No obvious exit, no set of footsteps to accompany it, just absence in one frame where presence sat in the frame before. My door becomes wood again, instead of a point of aim. The hall is a hallway. Morning finds the lens, and gray replaces night, the kind of light that erases edges and keeps only shape. People pass at the far end, too far for faces. Someone drops a bag and picks it up. The elevator breathes. The building goes back to being a building. I rewind to the place where the hand hovered over paint and pause there too long. The frame pixelates. The fingers dissolve into squares. It's stupid to want the video to turn its head. I scrub back to the beginning, forward again, pause and take screen grabs of the stillness from 3 angles that are all the same. Proof piles up like small stones. None of it is comfort. I send one picture to Kara before I can talk myself out of it. I'm coming up, shows on my screen almost at once. No. I can be there in 2 minutes. I'm already in the hall. No. Please, later. Then tell me when to knock. After work. Promise you won't open for anyone. I mean it. I promise. The silence that follows is the kind that holds hands. I set the phone face down and listen to the apartment breathe. The radiator lets out a soft click. The fridge hums. Far down the hall, a door shuts the honest way regular doors do. I watch the recording a last time, knowing no new detail will appear. The figure crouches, ear to wood. The figure rises. The figure goes. I close the video and lay the phone on the table like a thing that can bruise. I sit at the window because that is what I do now. The surveillance room across the street still hums in the corner of my vision. The wall of monitors throws its dead light. The square with my window keeps me. I drink water, and it tastes like metal. Noon slides into afternoon. I do normal things on purpose. The floor gets swept. A shirt is folded. I eat crackers I don't taste. I try a shower and scrub until my skin glows, and the sweet rot still clings like a low note under a song. Evening gathers. The streetlights prickle on. I turn my lamp off early and let the window outline my room. The smell presses at the glass, patient. I stand with my hands on the sill and feel the ridges of old paint under my palms. The surveillance grid dims and then swells, a breath moving inside a machine. The second-floor curtains hold flat in every window. I feel their weight, like a thought that won't leave. At 9:16, the block holds still. A car idles. A siren passes like a thin wire 2 streets over. My body counts the seconds whether I ask it to or not. My mouth is dry. The small gear behind my sternum, the one that turned the first night I watched, clicks once and waits. At 9:17, curtains along the facade move in the same heartbeat. Not one window, not one floor. The house takes a breath and exhales fabric. Second floor right opens, and Anna is there, as if she has been standing in that exact spot for the last hour, waiting for a piece of cloth to stop pretending it could keep her from me. Third floor center peels back, and Talia steps into the seam, chin lifted a degree past defiance. Third floor left parts, and Marisol fills her sliver with steady eyes, and the gray stripe that has become a stripe in my own mind. They do not mouth words. They do not lift hands. They do not knock on glass. They look at me. Not at the street, not at the surveillance room, at me. 3 separate rooms, 3 frames, 3 bodies held upright as if by strings, at the crown of the head. The expression they share is a kind of stillness that has nothing to do with calm. It is labor. Holding this much looking costs something. My whole body wants to step back. I don't. I make myself take their eyes the way you take a medicine that tastes like metal. On my left, somewhere I can't see, a bus exhales and leaves. The house ignores it. The three faces keep me. For a beat, I think I imagine a subtle shake of Anna's head. Not a no, but a refusal to look away. Talia's jaw sets, and a muscle there jumps in a rhythm that does not match my pulse. Marisol's mouth softens a fraction, like a person who sees a thing she has seen too many times, and would still save if she could. The longer it goes on, the stranger it becomes. Not intimate, less than human, more than threat. A show staged for me, with the cast, held half hostage by a director who never breaks the fourth wall. The wall of screens glows in the surveillance room beyond them, a cold constellation. I can feel the language of this moment and none of the words. The room holds its refrigerator hum, and my lungs work and time stretches into a muscle that burns. My body reaches for the most primitive answer. It tries to get smaller. I start to step back from the window, and that is when I see a second shape in the glass. At first it's just dark stacked on dark. Then the outline finds an edge, a height that isn't mine, too close, and a little to the left. A shoulder squared wrong for my frame. A head tipped in a listening posture that belongs to the hall outside my door. The reflection is faint, a smudge in the part of the glass the lamp doesn't touch. If I were smart, I would tell myself it's a trick. If I were merciful, I would lie to myself for one more minute. The shape does not move when I sway. It belongs to the room behind me, not my body. I turn. The apartment is empty. The chair by the door sits where I left it. The table holds the phone, the sugar jar, the square corner of the notebook, with its stupid heavy word. The sink is a dark mouth. The shadow in that corner is the shadow that has always lived behind the fridge. Nothing else. No breath that isn't mine, no weight bending the floor. I tell myself to laugh so I can own the sound. My throat refuses and sends up a dry click that could be a laugh if someone else named it. I turn back because fear moves in circles. The three windows across the street still hold their women. They have not moved. They have not blinked. Their eyes hold me like pins hold a map. I search the glass for the second shape and see only a smear that could be my fear, trying on a person suit. My breath fogs a faint film on the pane that clears and comes back. The house decides the moment is over. Every curtain slams shut at once. Not a ripple, not the staggered correction of a wind. All at once. Sound arrives a beat late, a soft percussive thwip multiplied by windows into something like a hand clapped over a dozen mouths. The facade turns back into blank fabric. Where faces were, there are only planes. The surveillance room beyond the curtains remains lit. The wall of monitors glows like the inside of a fish. I stand with my hands still on the sill and realize my nails have pressed half moons into the paint. The smell sits heavy at the back of my tongue, as if I swallowed a spoonful of something sweet and wrong. I ease my fingers off the wood and feel each joint remind me it exists. My legs have turned dull and heavy from holding still. I step backward into my own room, and the floor answers with a low complaint. I don't cry. I don't call Kara. I don't pull the cord to drop the blind. I don't turn on the lamp like a person who mistakenly believes that warm light beats cold sight. I stand in my square of darkness and feel my heartbeat move the shirt against my ribs. The apartment is a shape around me. The house is a shape across the street. Between them there is air I can breathe and air I cannot. My phone vibrates on the table. I don't want to look and do. A single line waits from Kara. You there? Yes. You good? No. Do you want me? Later. Promise you'll lock everything. I promise. The word looks thin on the screen. I put the device face down, and it becomes a dark coin. I listen for the hallway and hear nothing I can use. The quiet is not relief. It's a lid. There is a lesson here, and I hate lessons. Whatever watches me from that wall of squares can move 3 curtains with one breath. Whatever listens at my door can stay crouched for hours with its ear to the seam. When the women look at me, it is not to invite me or warn me in any way I can use. It is to show me they can be made to perform. The surveillance room holds my window, whether I am in it or not. When I step back, I am still in it. When I close my eyes, I can feel the square of me on that wall. I lower myself to the floor and sit with my back to the wall and the window low in my view, so the night can't fill all of me. My hands rest open on my knees. I inhale through my nose and taste metal and the floor and the ghost of bleach that will not let go. I exhale through my mouth and watch the fog kiss the glass and fade. There is a moment in every story where the shape changes, and you know it cannot go back to the shape it was. I should have known it was the knock. I should have known it was the surveillance room opening like a throat. It feels like it's now, here, in the soft echo after fabric moves. The sense that the house is no longer across from me, but around me. That it has reached under my door and found my pulse. That when I look into the glass, the second shape I saw will find a way to learn mine. I don't sleep. My body does that cheap imitation of sleep where your eyes close and your heart keeps time like a metronome you can't reach to switch off. Every time I drift, the night comes back in the same order. 3 faces held upright in the windows across the street, not blinking, not asking, just fixed on me like pins. And behind that, layered and wrong, the faint outline in my own glass, a height that isn't mine, a slope of shoulder that doesn't belong to any reflection I own. The gray that comes before morning makes the apartment feel unfinished. Corners go soft. The air has weight. The sweet rot that rode home on my sleeves is stronger today, braided with bleach, threaded through everything. My rug, my chair, the fibers of the towel I left to dry. It's not only at the window anymore. It feels like the house solved a problem, and the problem was me. My phone lights up the room in a small way. You awake? Yes. I'm coming over. No. I'm at the corner. 2 minutes. Don't. Claire, please. Not now. Her typing dots blink and vanish. The silence that follows is the kind that holds a breath. I set the phone face down and try to listen for ordinary sounds in my own walls. Plumbing, the sleepy cough of the radiator, some neighbor's late-night dish in a sink. But everything I hear bends toward the window. A tiny click cuts the air. I look up fast enough to make the room tip. The latch at the top of the sash is off its line. The bottom pane sits open the width of a fingernail. I know I shut it. I know the feel of that latch biting down. Now a thin thread of air slips through and lays the sweet rot directly across my tongue. There's a folded scrap of paper on the sill. It wasn't there before. Clean white, unlined, corners pinched hard enough to leave crisp creases. I touch it like it will burn. It doesn't. I unfold it with careful hands that don't feel careful. 2 words in thick black marker. Help her. Not a plea. Not help me. Help us. An instruction, a choice pressed into the smallest space, blunt and merciless. My first dumb thought is to argue with it. Witch her. Then the actual thought lands. The latch, the gap, the paper inside my home. Whether a hand reached in, or a hand slid out and forgot to shut it, the boundary that made sense is gone. I hold the scrap until the paper warms and my fingers start to shake. I set it under the plant cup to stop it from moving, like that could make the words less loud. The room tilts again. I find the kitchen drawer and pick a knife without looking. Not the big one that shows off, the short one that does the job. I wrap a dish towel around the handle because my palm is already sweating. The weight is small and real in a morning that feels like it's made of fog. I pull on my jacket and shoes that don't squeak. I turn the phone to silent and slide it into my back pocket so it won't flare light at the wrong second. I stand at my door with my hand on the wood and feel the building's soft heart through it. Pipes, air, the tiny buzz of everything that keeps ordinary life moving. It steadies me in the way. Seeing a street light steady in wind steadies you. I undo the chain and leave the deadbolt for last. I put my eye to the peephole. The hall looks like it always does through the fisheye. Humming bulb, beige carpet, the permanent stain 3 doors down shaped like a country no one wants to visit. Nothing moves. I turn the bolt. I open the door fast because hesitation is a trap. The hallway has the posture of a question at night. I cross it and take the stairs down, correcting for every squeak my building knows how to make. The lobby smells like old mail and lemon cleaner. The lock gives that small bite when I turn it, like metal kissing metal. Outside, the air is heavier than it should be. It presses on my skin. The block looks emptied out, but awake in the way cities always are. Distant cars, the long hum of a light across the street, pretending to be a small sun. The house waits. It doesn't have to do anything to make that clear. It just holds its shape. The porch is too clean. The curtains are too straight. The white mailbox label looks new, even if it isn't. Harrow on an angle that reads like a little joke, the house made about itself. 14 steps in daylight. Tonight, 14 tests. Curb, oil dark seam, gum flattened into the road like old decisions, the pale paint of a crosswalk with the lines rubbed thin by years of feet. I move. A car turns the far corner, slows as drivers slow when something interrupts the neat line in their night, then slides past without stopping. The driver's face does that brief thing faces do when they agree not to register a thing. Tires hiss. I reach the opposite curb, and the street behind me feels like a sheet of paper, someone folded wrong and pressed flat again. The porch has learned how to erase footprints. I've watched rain tell that truth. Boards scrubbed until the fibers are tired. A mat that refuses to keep leaves. The smell is thick on the boards, sweet rot tipped sharp by chemical. It sits on the back of my tongue. The mailbox clicks a soft, settling click. Somewhere above the door, a tiny red point wakes and steadies like a polite heartbeat. I don't ring. I don't knock. I lay my palm against the wood. It's warm in a way that doesn't belong to night. The door opens before I push it. No one stands in the frame. The house stands to let me in. Air moves past my face, with the inside smell of a place that never opens its lungs enough. The runner in the entry looks cleaner than yesterday and curls at the corner in the same way, as if it has been trained to pretend flatness. The white paint on the walls leans toward gray, where it has been asked to cover too much. The light is the kind that tries not to cast shadows, and fails. The hallway runs out from the entry, like a length of something pulled taut. It is too long for this building. The wrongness slides into me, like a blade laid flat. Doors line both sides, numbers tidy and black, stenciled neat. Locks bought in a batch shine like small moons over the latches. The hum is not heat. It's a layered drone inside plaster and wood. Machines nested in walls. A tone you feel through shoe soles and teeth. I step over the curl of the runner like stepping over a line someone drew for me. The floor takes my weight with that patient sound the house has practiced. I keep the knife low, close to my jacket, because motion makes noise, and noise feels like currency. Door 1 sits to my left. The gap between the door and the jamb is even. The paint on the frame shows a thin lip of old gray under the new white. I lean without touching. The air near the seam is warmer than the hall. I don't put my ear to it. There are types of listening you don't practice in certain rooms. 3 steps forward. Door 2 carries a faint motor in its wood, the kind of hum machines make when they can't ever be truly off. Door 3's number has the tiniest bleed around the curve, as if the stencil shifted under a brush. The lock at 3 is newer than the others, bright, a hair too tight in its plate. Cool air threads out along the seam. I imagine rooms kept colder, to make bodies manageable, or to make smells less honest. Anger rises behind my ribs and surprises me. I press it down and pocket it. I'll need it later. Somewhere above me, even footsteps measure the floor. Not heavy, not hurried, controlled. The hall light doesn't change, but the brightness seems to gather at the edges, leaving the middle long and lean. I hold my breath until holding it feels performative, then let it go quietly. A red dot sits in the angle where ceiling meets wall. The camera looks like a bug that learned how to stare. It doesn't blink. I breathe smaller, ridiculous and automatic, as if the sound of air in my throat could carry across to a lens and mean something. The runner has dark blooms, where heels stop and pivot. The dark is spaced the way people are spaced when they line up for something. I hate that my brain draws a line without asking. The hallway widens a breath at a shallow jog and narrows again. Numbers skip. 6 sits across from 8. 7 sits alone at a wrong angle that no carpenter would sign. The lock on 7 is shiny with small scratches. The air around it is colder, damp at the edges. Mold lives under paint, even when you tell yourself it doesn't. A door ahead whispers a single knuckle knock from inside. Not loud. One small contact, a presence saying I exist, and then unsaying it. I stop moving. Something in the hum stops with me, like the house learned manners and is pretending to have them. I shift my weight, and the hum picks up again, the way a mouth breathes when another mouth under it isn't sure it should. On the right, a thin door without a number interrupts the uniformity. Newer paint, newer knob, a latch instead of a fat lock. The hum behind it is quiet and bright, the particular sound screens make when their light pushes hard against a room. The part of me that wants to obey the hallway keeps walking. The part that reads the scrap under my plant cup puts my hand on the latch. I push down. It gives easily and opens a measured distance, as if it has been taught to open exactly this far. Cold light spills across my knuckles. I don't step in. I don't yet. I stand in the seam and let my eyes adjust to the aquarium glow. A wall of monitors climbs the far side, 3 on the desk, 2 stacked above, more along the wall on cheap mounts. Cable loops drop like vines and vanish into holes chewed in drywall. The air smells like warm plastic and dust. The chair in the corner holds its old angle like it's been waiting for a body for years. On the nearest screen is my window. Empty frame, still manages to look like me. The next shows my hallway at home, the fisheye curve of it making everything look too short. The next shows the lobby of my building from an angle a person only gets by bolting a lens high where no one looks. Another holds the stairwell I don't remember in this house. Rough wood, new rail, wire stapled along the rise like a thoughtless line. The lag is there as I lift my hand. On the screen, my hand rises half a second after. It's like watching a version of yourself that lives in a place that's slightly behind yours, a ghost that keeps up badly. Label sheets sit on the desk, stacks of tidy names and numbers, blank rectangles waiting to be turned into things. I don't touch them. I don't want to leave oil. I don't want to make anything in here more permanent by letting my body confirm it exists. The wall hum changes pitch, a fraction lower, like something woke, listened, and approved. I step back into the hall. The numbered doors wait in their patient row. The runner waits. The camera dots sit like small eyes, polite as pins. The smell is thicker, sweeter, wetter. Bleach tries to crust over it and only makes the sweet stand out. I tell myself to turn around, to go back across the street and pretend I never saw the room with the monitors and the polite chair. I tell myself that the right thing to do is find another right thing that isn't this. The scrap under my plant cup answers with two words I can't unlearn. Help her. I move deeper into the hall. The light seems to dim by degrees that can't be measured with a switch. The hum threads my bones. My soles learn the runner's texture until I could stand here with my eyes shut and know this place by feel. The walls close in a fraction. Somewhere, a second camera wakes with its little red pupil and adds me to its list. The house breathes shallow and steady. I match it without meaning to. I pass 9 and 10 and a door with no number at all, just fresh paint too smooth for these walls, a knob with no scratches. I don't touch it. I keep my knife low and tight against my side. Fear is a shape now. I carry it in my body like an extra organ. It's working in concert with my lungs. A soft tick runs along the baseboards, not inside, under. Wiring. Someone stapled it in a hurry. The hall seems to bend where there shouldn't be space for a bend. Houses don't do this unless they are older than anyone remembers, or newer than anyone asked for. I should be counting doors. I am counting breaths. I don't call out. I don't want to hear my own voice in here. The only words that matter are folded on my sill and riding my body like a command. I tell myself I will stop at the next corner, the next camera, the next curl in the runner. I keep passing all of them. The house doesn't hurry me. That's the worst part. It doesn't need to. The ceiling lowers an inch. The hum grows a layer like a harmony. Air cools in the way air cools before you go down. Somewhere above me, a controlled footstep crosses a room at a measured pace. The light stays the same and somehow gets darker. The corridor opens its mouth to the next problem, and I step toward it, because I have already crossed the only line that mattered. The door behind me sighs shut. The latch doesn't click. The sound is a breath held, not exhaled. The house keeps the rest for later. The door's breath fades behind me, and the hum in the walls fattens until it feels like I'm standing inside a throat. The corridor narrows in tiny ways that don't belong on a blueprint. The cameras keep their red eyes on me like polite insects. I should go back. I go forward. Door 11 carries a whisper under its wood, too soft to be words, too focused to be pipes. I lean, stop myself short of touching, and hear a sound I know from my own nights. A person practicing how to breathe quietly. The kind of practice that takes hours. The lock at 11 is new enough to glitter. A faint scuff mars the jamb at shoulder height. Paint rubbed dull by bodies. Learning exactly where to press an ear without making sound. I step away because I don't want my heartbeat to be a message. The corridor jogs left, then offers a right that shouldn't fit inside the footprint of the house. At the corner, a draft rises from the floor like a slow ghost. It smells wet and metallic, the way a basement breathes when it's pretending not to be flooded. The sweet rot is thicker this deep in. Bleach tries to cover it and only makes it brighter, like chalk over old writing. I swallow, and it sits in my throat like a small coin. The thin door to the surveillance room gapes a quiet inch where I left it. I stand in that seam again and feel the cold light index my face. The wall of squares holds an arrangement that could be art if it weren't murder. The nearest screen still owns my window. The next shows my hall. The next shows this corridor from a lens near the ceiling, me folded into a grainy figure with a knife low in my hand. The lag lives here too, a half-breath late. I raise a finger and the finger on the screen rises a half-second after. It feels like walking behind myself in a tunnel that pinches narrower with every step. Beyond the desk, a second cluster of monitors makes a cheap constellation. One shows a landing with a low ceiling and a tightened spiral of stairs. Another captures a strip of concrete wall, lit by a bare bulb. Another looks into a room with no corners, just curve, like the inside of a pipe widened into a cell. The chair holds its angle in the corner, an empty patient seat, too ready for a body. I step inside because not stepping has turned into a kind of step anyway. The air tastes of warmed plastic and dust. The cables hum under my shoes like sleeping snakes. I lean toward the monitor that shows this hall and watch tiny events I wouldn't have known to clock in real time. A ripple in the runner where someone stepped last night and the carpet didn't fully forgive. A darker shade at the baseboard where new paint tried to train old wood. The lens catches dust in the air and turns it into weather. A small motion twitches at the edge of the frame that owns my apartment. For a breath, I think it's me, but the shape is wrong, and there is no moving person in that room right now. The curtain lifts a sliver and settles as if a draft ran a testing finger along the hem. No, not a draft. The very slight drag of cloth when someone inside a space breathes too close to it. A dot of red wanders the lower corner, a light from the camera perched somewhere I have not found. I exhale, and the glass in front of me fogs, and on the screen across the wall, the same fog arrives, half a second late. The echo is obscene. It makes everything here feel like a rehearsal for a show you can't choose to leave. A sheet of labels sits on the desk, with words printed in tidy black. Room, wing, date, subject. The top sheet is blank. The sheet beneath is not. Lines of numbers have been filled in with a hand that doesn't squeeze. There is nothing crazy about the writing. That is what turns my stomach. The calm of it. I pick up a corner with 2 fingertips and slide it enough to read a single entry. A number, a dash, a short note that might mean something to someone keeping track of a problem like me. I slide it back, because leaving the sheet skewed would feel like writing my name. My phone vibrates once against my back pocket. The sound is a small tap against my spine. I don't take it out. That is what this place has done to me in one night. An alarm that might be a person who loves me is less important than anything I could learn in this room I shouldn't be in. I press my palm to the desk to steady my knees, and the heat of the machine finds me through the wood. On the wall, a screen I'm not looking at changes before I can decide to. It shows a hallway without numbers, blank angles and white paint, too smooth for this building. The camera sits low, as if bolted to a waist-high bracket. The view lists as if mounted badly. I frown, lean, and the memory fits. That is not this house. That is my building's third floor. I know the small chip in the paint, near the fire extinguisher, the snagged loop of carpet lifted by a bag years ago, the blackened bruise where someone dropped a cigarette before the new manager enforced rules. It is one thing to know my window is a square among their squares. It is another to see the outside of my life caught by an angle only an installer would know. Air leaves my chest in a wrong breath. My hand tightens around my improvised weapon. Footsteps sigh behind me in the corridor. I stand very still. The glimmer at the corner of the surveillance screen widens like a pupil. I edge to the doorframe and peer into the hall. At the far end, in the seam where light gives up, a face holds itself barely inside the visibility it needs. Cheek first, then the line of a jaw. The eye looks straight down the length of the hall and finds me, like my bones are coordinates. The mouth shapes the same single word: run. It doesn't need sound. The shape is enough. I step out of the door, and the room's cold breath dies on my skin. The figure doesn't move closer. She doesn't lift a hand. She keeps the command small because small is the shape safety takes when you're learning its rules. Anna stands there, as if she's been listening for my feet for a long time. A dark smudge crosses her cheekbone, like a thumbprint. Her hair is pulled too tight against her skull. The hallway air around her looks colder than the air around me, and my chest hurts because even the light in this house chooses sides. A second figure detaches from a doorway on the left and bleeds into view like it was always part of the wall. Marisol. The gray ribbon in her hair catches the dull hall light and becomes an instruction. She lifts a hand low and makes a sharp, precise motion. A chopping line near her hip that translates without words. No. She points to her ear, then to the wall, and the muscle in her throat swallows once, visibly. Her face makes none of the expressions I learned to read in other lives. She is all signal, no story. Something about that drains the heat out of my anger and puts a kind of cold intelligence in its place. A third presence leans into the air between them, taller, shoulders familiar because fear taught me them. Talia's outline keeps the discipline it had at the window and adds a small, fierce tilt of the chin. Her finger lays itself along her mouth and holds there, not theatrical, not pleading, a blade of instruction. Shh. My legs want to run and freeze at the same time. The part of me that wants to survive tries to hold both positions and fail at neither. I take a step toward them because the animal brain in a person is stupid about moving toward faces it trusts. The hum in the wall grows louder as if it knows a choice is happening. The lights down the hall flicker and then fail in a graceful line, one after the other. Boom, 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 far to near, like someone snipped a cord rhythmically along the ceiling. Darkness pours into those squares and stops short of me by 2 doors. I can feel the last pool of light on the runner, like the edge of a small cliff. My eyes don't want to adjust to the new uniform. The cameras keep their red pinpoints. They are the only mouths still open. A soft rattle moves through the house. Not one door, all of them. The locks tremble in their plates, a collected shiver like teeth. The sensation comes up through the soles of my shoes and into my legs before it reaches my ears, and the order of it is worse than if it were loud. Doors that have learned a routine are performing it for me. I try to find anger again and smack into fear hard. A sound joins the hum. Footsteps, not mine, not above. Here. Weight placed without hurry, one at a time. The slow gait men use when speed is a concession, and they don't owe you one. It comes from the dark at the far end, where the women just were. But the sound refuses to live on the floor where my mind puts it. It lives in the wall first, and in my chest second. I take a step back, because that part of me still has a vote. The light recedes from my shoes, like tides. The surveillance room's glow spills a cold strip across the runner. I angle my body so it fills as little of that strip as possible. The red eyes perch above me and do not blink. I picture how this looks on the wall of squares, and the image throws me toward a new choice. If I stand here much longer, I become a loop in someone else's show. I step sideways out of the cold light and into the last sliver of the hall's warmer failure. A door near my shoulder pulses with a knock, no louder than a heartbeat, in a quiet bed. Once. The kind of knock a person makes when they have to will their knuckles not to turn into fists. I don't touch the handle. I don't want to feel what opening would do to my arm. I lay my free hand on the wall beside the frame and feel the hum change under my palm, the way a dog changes breath when you bring your hand near. The machine beneath the paint acknowledges my heat and shifts its tone like it's learning my note. Another step in the dark. Closer. Even. My mouth floods with metal. I take a risk and lean farther around the surveillance doorframe. The wall of monitors has picked up a new view, lower left. A grainy, off-angle shot of this same corridor from farther down. A shadow slides into frame, there like a tide. Not a shape you can love. Not yet a face. The negative of a figure pushing the hall's air ahead of it. I try to pull back, and the monitor catches my own movement, half a breath later. I look like a person rehearsing a fear she never wanted to stage. In the darkness, Anna's mouth opens and closes. I can't read it this far. She may not be mouthing words at all. She might just be memorizing breath. Marisol's hand makes another small cutting motion, and she fades backward into the door seam, like she's dissenting on principle and knows it will cost her. Talia doesn't move, a statue with a blade for a finger. I aim myself at the geometry of escape and find none that isn't a corridor I haven't learned yet. The runner under my feet gathers itself as if anticipating a burst of speed. I shift my weight without stepping, and the surge it sends through my legs makes my muscles say yes when my head says no. The knife handle slicks in my palm, and the towel goes damp. The lights go out where I stand. Not a fade, a clean cut. The red eyes of cameras float in the dark like seeds. The hum jumps a note lower and settles into a pulse that wants to climb inside my bones. The door to the surveillance room breathes cold on my shoulder, and I have the very clear thought that stepping inside would be stepping into a square that can only be seen. The footsteps stop. The silence after is worse than noise in the same way that a withheld slap is worse than the blow. A voice might save me. It doesn't come. The women might break rank and reach. They don't. The house keeps its part of the performance. The hallway holds still in a way that contains weight. I think of the small folded scrap under my plant cup and the narrow hard strokes of the marker, and I make the only sound I let myself make. Please. It is so quiet in this corridor that the word seems to go sideways into the walls and not forward into ears. The footsteps resume, 3 beats that measure the space between us like a lesson taught to children. Somewhere far to my left, a door thumps in a steady, uncanny rhythm, and the thumps seem to pile up under my ribs. The women move at last, a ripple only, the kind you see out of the corner of your eye that proves you're looking at people and not photographs. In the dark, I can't tell if they're leaning toward me or toward the sound, or if they're being leaned by whatever is inside these walls, pushing its will into theirs. The thought lands, and I know it's right. It's not indecision. It's choreography. The contradictions that unstitched me at the window were written for my nerves. Run. No. Shh. The heavy shape in the far dark edges forward another step. A tiny red dot above it climbs and corrects and smooths as if mounted to a head that wants the cleanest line. I take 2 short, soft steps backward and feel the runner lift and set under my feet like a tongue. The cold light along the surveillance door frame paints a slice on my jacket, and I move out of it fast because I can smell the plastic warmth of that room now, and it smells like being turned into a square. The next pool of hall light dies. I'm a meter from blank. I try a whisper that feels like touching an electric fence. Where? The letters go nowhere helpful. The house keeps them. A knock answers from behind a door to my right. 2 slow taps low to the floor as if someone used a shoe instead of a hand. The logic of that is horrible and correct. Hands carry prints. Feet are easier to hide. I step sideways and the wall leans a fraction. Not really. Only my nerve endings playing old tricks. But it feels like leaning. And the part of me that thinks in pictures shows me the house bending so my body will fit somewhere it wasn't built to fit. Another footstep arrives. Near. Measured to the exact edge of threat. A pause. The air compresses along the corridor like heat from an insect coil. Below the hum, something heavier drags a breath. I don't wait to see a face. Faces are the last part of the story. I turn in the kind of control that gets taught in self-defense gyms and is forgotten by most people at the first scream. The knife stays down and close, because I am not here to swing at shadows and make noise. I take the angle that gets me past the surveillance room without letting its doorway own me. My shoulder grazes the cold edge of the frame, and the monitor's glow climbs my neck. On the wall, it will look like a soft white ghost, moving 1 beat late. I push off into deeper hall, and the darkness pulls me in, like water. Behind me, the locks rattle again, in a shared shiver. Ahead, the floor tilts softly as the corridor offers me a bend that should not exist. The hum gathers itself into something more focused, a tone that isn't heat or refrigeration or any normal machine. It sounds like a transformer with a grudge, like a throat readying to speak in a room with no mouths. The camera's red dots dot the curve like a constellation. The footsteps follow with the patience of a person who has always lived with halls like this and knows exactly how many turns the house has left to offer. The last pool of light dies. I run quietly into the dark and let the house show me the next shape of its trap. The dark tightens until the hall feels like a throat. The hum lowers and gathers, a single note pressed into bone. Cameras mark the curve ahead with their small red seeds. I move fast and quiet, trusting the runner's give to tell me where the floor bends. The air cools the way air cools before you go down. The corridor gives me a new angle that shouldn't exist inside this footprint. I take it, and the smell climbs to meet me, wet metal under bleach. The sweet rot thickens until it feels physical, like a damp cloth laid over my face. The hum fattens into a steady pressure. A stairwell opens in the wall, cut into poured concrete that learned to look smooth. The first step drops like a decision. The risers are old wood painted the color of resignation. New rails gleam too clean. Zip-tied cables ride the underside like veins. The first tread complains softly. The second does not. Even that has been practiced. Cold climbs my ankles. I smell iron and old water, and the breath of trapped pipes. Cameras perch in the corners where stair meets wall, their red points adjusting by degrees. Halfway down, I stop because stopping halfway preserves two choices. Above, the hallway breathes. Below, the hum thickens like a voice warming up. The door at the top eases toward closed without clicking. The sound lands under my sternum. I go down. Light at the base is the thin kind bare bulbs make. It spreads too far and not far enough. The floor is painted once and scuffed to raw. A long drain bisects the room and makes a faint wet sound, more collected breath than flow. Steel lives here. Not elegant bars, welded frames, utilitarian chipped paint, new patches over older work. Wires run like vines along the ceiling into boxes that hum their own notes. A dehumidifier labors in a corner, pushing air that smells like a sick towel. In the center sits a single chair, bolted to the floor. No straps. Faced toward a wall of monitors making their own dull weather. Every square holds a version of me. Not all live, some looped by a heartbeat. Me crossing the surveillance doorway, glow on my cheek. Me at my own peephole, a fisheye mouth of brass. Me on these steps, a single step higher than I am, then catching up. Another angle shows the back of my jacket from just above my shoulder, a view no lens should own unless it's breathing on my collar. A tiny red dot in that frame flares and corrects as if mounted to a head. A soft motion draws my eye left. Behind the first set of cages, 3 faces step out of shadow like photographs bathing up. Anna grips bars with both hands and looks at me the way she did across the street. Exact, unflinching. Marisol stands a step back from her own bars, head tilted so the gray stripe catches the wrong light. Talia fills her frame even when she holds still. Their mouths move. No sound. The house has turned their voices into air. I'm here. My voice sounds borrowed. It doesn't carry. It lands and vanishes like a coin dropped into velvet. Talia lifts that clean blade of a finger to her mouth. Shh. Anna shakes her head once. Not a no, a don't. Her lips make shapes my eyes want to decode and cannot. Marisol points down the corridor, then toward the stairs, then straight at me with a small, precise jab, like a teacher correcting posture. Urgency is the only meaning I can keep. Keys. Anna's mouth shapes nothing I can use. Marisol opens her palm to show me air. Talia presses one hand flat to the bars, and the steel doesn't vibrate. The welds are new in one place and newer in another. This geometry doesn't open with a pocket of metal. It opens somewhere else, in a room I haven't earned. The monitors brighten together the way schools of fish turn. My apartment fills a square center high. The angle is wrong for anything I own, slightly down, like an eye mounted where ceiling meets wall. The room is empty. Then it isn't. I am there. I sit at my window, hands on the sill, head tipped to glass. My face is slack, not staring, past staring. The version in that square breathes, small throat movement, the kind you only see when you want to see it. The chair under my body here is hard and cold. The chair there holds a posture I would swear belongs to rest. I want it to be looped footage. Then my own chest rises the way mine rises now, one beat off. I lift my hand without thinking, and the me in the square lifts hers late. She doesn't look at her hand. She looks through the glass at this house, as if waiting for a signal on a schedule. My ribs feel small. A click in the wall pulls a thin thread of air. A voice slides out of the vents like water finding seams. Good evening, Claire. Breath leaves me in a small meat sound. The words are calm, tidy, unhurried. The room shrinks by inches just from hearing them. You're attentive. I search for speakers and find nothing. The voice lives in all the walls. You notice. You match your breathing to other people's windows. You keep records. It's generous. I stand very still so the sound won't learn a new fact it can use. Some ask for safety, some for invisibility, some to know. The knowers are useful, Claire. They remind the others that the world has eyes. They help privacy mean something. Anna's fingers tighten on the bars. Talia doesn't move. Marisol's mouth forms the smallest word any language could share. Please. You came across the street. Lines matter. You crossed one. Where are you? Nearby. The answer lands, soft and smug. This place is private. Privacy is important here. You've learned that. Watching is a kind of care. You've been very caring from your window. Let them out. Out is relative. On the wall, the frame with my apartment tightens by a degree, as if a lens leaned in. What do you want? You learned our rhythm. 9:17. You tested signals. You raised and lowered your own curtain to say hello. You were inside long before you opened the door. A lower screen flickers and finds a new view. The inside of my peephole, the brass ring making a halo around a fisheye world. My hallway, my number, a faint oval where a person once breathed too close. The image shakes once and steadies. Somewhere in my building, a lens settled into place. Please. People arrive with fear in their hands like luggage. We don't take it away. That isn't possible. We put it to work. The chair in the center points at the wall of squares. It looks as if it has waited for me since the house learned my name. I avoid its orbit. I keep my back to the cages, because turning away from the women feels like a cut I won't heal from. You sent a note. I'm not the only one who writes notes. Help her. Good advice. Who? A pause in which the house measures me. You. The word is gentle. It lands in the center of me and turns the knife slick. The cage lights stutter and settle. Anna leans forward, and her lips make a shape I recognize at last. Don't. At the same time, Marisol pulls breath into her chest and looks at me with the exact authority of a mother who has to give a command you will hate. Go. Talia's finger cuts the air. Shh. Then she points at the chair. A single hard gesture. Look. I turn because my body has learned to obey a woman who points at danger. The chair faces the wall of squares, and where an empty seat should wait, a body sits. My body. The posture is mine. The slope of shoulders, the set of hands, the way fatigue arranges a back. The camera has been teaching me a second of delay so long, I didn't notice when it stopped being delay and started being possession. The chair is empty in the room, full on the wall. Knees forget how to be knees and unlock anyway. The drain breathes. The hum draws breath. The house learns my weight and relaxes. I go to the lock on Anna's door because living inside a trap doesn't absolve you of trying to break one. The mechanism is not a keyhole. A flat black square waits for a card or code. The seam is tight, no give for a blade. Bolts anchor into concrete. A low cable runs into the jamb. I set the knife tip under its sheath, the way you ease a staple out of wood. The sheath gives a millimeter, tightens, and a thin alarm wakes in the wall like a mosquito. I stop. I don't know what that summons. Let them speak. They are resting. Let me. You are doing very well. The smile in that line makes bile rise. I look for another door that isn't the stairs I came down. The far wall shows a panel almost flush to concrete. Paint, covering the margin. No handle, just a plate. Cameras mark the seam from a low angle. I cross the drain, and the wet sound shifts pitch. a shallow ripple that moves left to right, as if something beneath the floor heard me pass. I lay my palm near the plate. Cool, indifferent. It hums once. Denial. Why me? You crossed the street. On the central screen, my apartment breathes through dawn. The version of me at the window doesn't blink for a long count. Then one blink. The mouth moves a fraction, like a person remembering the shape of a word. I know the feel of it. It's the shape of my name when I tried not to choke on it in the dark. The hum drops. The cages glow a breath and dim, like the house reminding itself it can. The women shift. Anna's fingers loosen, and she steps back from the bars a single pace, making a space that could be an exit if the geometry consented. Marisol taps her ribs twice, as if telling me to remember breath. Talia's eyes lock on mine, until my spine straightens against a will that isn't mine. I'm walking out. You already sat down. On the wall, the chair shows my body settling deeper, lag turning into sentence. I take a step backward, and a lens I can't locate catches the veer. Somewhere, a camera blinks and smooths its aim. Stop watching me. We are attentive. The voice enjoys that word. Footsteps move above, the same measured pace, and fade into the architecture like conversation you are not meant to catch. I run. It isn't a choice made by a mind. Legs choose and pull the rest. I take the long way around the chair, so no metal can clip a sleeve and anchor me to a ritual. Light from the screens drags across my face. In the squares, versions of me run after and do not catch up. The hallway mouth answers want like water answers gravity. Behind, a cage door clanks once. No open, no shut. A sound that could be hope if I were built to hear it. The stairwell eats my feet. I take steps by twos. The stringers give their practiced noise. The hum climbs with me. Red dots lift and angle like insects correcting for prey. The light above does not brighten. It thins. I hit the landing, push into a corridor that bends wrong and bends again, and the house folds itself into a shape that allows exactly one body to pass. Almost there. The voice is close and everywhere, the way music in a mall tries to be the same to every ear. You're doing very well. The kindness is worse than contempt. I pass 10, 9, the unnumbered door, fresh paint without scratches. Numbers break and resume. The hallway shortens and lengthens like a muscle in spasm. I aim for the curl in the entry runner, the tiny landmark that has become a promise. It arrives like something I've been allowed to win. The entry lamp tries not to cast shadows, and fails. The door stands where doors stand. I grab the knob. The wood is warm. There is no bolt. I pull. The porch looks like a photograph of a porch, clean even, wrong. Night presses a bland weight against my face and smells like the sweet rot forgot to die. The street is a wide mouth, quiet and awake. I could step out. 14 tests in reverse. Lock downstairs with shaking hands. Climb my stairs and sit at a window like a person who learned her lesson. I don't move. Across the street in my window, I am already sitting. Hands on the sill, head tipped, breathing my breath at a distance. She doesn't look at me. She looks through the glass at the house I stand inside. One beat behind and one beat ahead. Every angle belongs to a lens. Behind me, a door knocks once at the low height a shoe might make. In the vents, a breath waits for mine. The house holds the door open like a courteous host and lets me practice choosing. I see you. The words leave my mouth and come back half a beat later, through a speaker I can't find. I laugh because the stuck sound in my throat needs a shape, and laughter is the only one that fits. It tastes like metal. I step back. The door closes with that expensive quiet it loves. The runner memorizes my weight. Red eyes take their notes. I move like a person who picked a path, and the hum levels out, pleased. On the wall of squares, my apartment receives morning. Kara appears in a different frame, lens over the lobby, hair up, jacket zipped, keys laced through her fingers the way care becomes a weapon. Another square finds her on my floor, at my door, knocking with careful knuckles. Claire. She presses her ear to the wood. The peephole view turns her face into a warped moon. She knocks again. The figure in my window across the street does not turn. Open up. She texts, and my phone buzzes in my pocket like a moth that forgot how to die. You there. Kara leans back, glances at my window, freezes. She lifts her phone, squints, zooms as if glass and code could add meaning to a shape. She runs upstairs when her body understands the shape anyway. The apartment camera holds the empty room as she fumbles the lock. She stands in my doorway. She breathes once, hard. The place is what it always is. Her mouth makes a word I'm glad I can't hear. She texts again. I'm calling this in. The hall here settles. The hum smooths. The women breathe in a rhythm they didn't choose. The voice in the walls goes quiet. It doesn't need to speak now. It has given me its ending. I watch the screens until my eyes go raw. I watch the corridor until the red dots feel like the only stars I will ever get. The knife hangs at my side. The towel darkens with the sweat my hand finally admits. A thought arrives, and it isn't a line. It's a room. The house isn't across the street anymore. I'm inside it.